Friends, on behalf of Huge Exchange, I welcome you all for this series of Manthans. Today we have three eminent speakers, Manoj Foglaji, Suresh Kejriwalji. Manoj Foglaji has joined us from Cuttack. Suresh Kejriwalji is from Kolkata and Tarun Madanji is from New Delhi. So this is what the COVID has given us. If we think that the positive part of the COVID, now we are habituated. We are in our offices, in our places, but COVID has made the compulsion that we should interact virtually. And now, friends, today we are enjoying the benefit of what COVID has given, and we will enjoy this our whole life. Friends, we are very thankful to Manoj Foglaji, Suresh Kejriwalji, Tarun Madanji, who has written a book also on charitable trust and who had agreed that we should hold this program. And today, about 300 members have joined, in spite of the fact that we already had, Views Exchange already had one program virtually on Views Exchange. This is the second program virtually. And we also had physical program at BCCI with full house of about 300 plus members. So this is how the provisions, the amendments, the changes are so drastic that the members are taking it, not taking very lightly, but taking the charitable trust provisions now very seriously. So thanks to the CA fraternity also for taking the changes very seriously. With this, we also have one program physically, that is problems and solutions. That the theme or the tagline of the seminar, that is 17th of this month, friends, Saturday, we are having this at BCCI Kolkata. This program, we have Ahuja Bandyopadhyay, who will be taking us audit and accounts practical issues and suggestions. I myself will take the audit real part. Then we also have Naveen Mohiji. Mohiji will take us through the. Then we have Naveen Khemka ji, past president of the Views Exchange, who will take us with the ITR issues. Then we have Mohan Ramji Goenka, who will take us with the company law issues. And Mohiji will take with the NBFC issues, friends. So I would request everybody present here to kindly register for this Manthan Series 5. With this, thank you everyone. I request the moderator to kindly take the things forward. Vinayji, please.
I welcome Manoj Foglaji. He has over 3 decades of practicing experience on tax, legal, and regulatory aspect of NPO and charitable institutions. Law practitioner. He is a law practitioner. He is a fellow member of ITI and also holds master's degree in philosophy. He is a PhD from Utkal University, doctoral research on social accountability standards for NPO. He is author of several best-selling books for professionals, including the recent one titled Trust and NGOs Ready Recognized by Taxmen. He has drafted publication for the ICAI, such as FAQ on GST for NPO and FAQ on FCRA for NPO. He has been a faculty and resource person in various national and international forums. So with this remark, I welcome Manoj Foglaji. Yadhari Sharma ji, please.
Thank you. Today amongst us, Suresh Kejriwal ji is a practicing chartered accountant from Calcutta. He is the founder partner of Agrawal Kejriwal and Company Chartered Accountants. He is mainly working in the NGO sector and he has wide experience of more than 32 years. He is one of the associate author of the book Taxation of Trust and NGO by Taxmen. He has also written books on trust and NGO Ready Reckoner by Taxmen. He is one of the person involved in preparing draft of frequent asked question for NPO on GST published by the Committee for the Cooperatives and NPO Sectors of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, New Delhi. He has authored Handbook on Control System for NGO published by FMSE Delhi. He has facilitated member of workshop seminars organized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants and other institutions. He is a regular speaker on the various forums and he is a regular paper writer. He addressed more than 500 seminars. Today we also have
Pallavi, please speak about the Tarun Madan. Pallavi, are you there?
Thank you, Girish, for the introduction of Suresh Kejriwal ji. Now would I like to introduce Tarun Madan ji. Tarun Madan ji is a qualified chartered accountant with extensive expertise in taxation, especially consulting services to startups and NGO in India for helping them to set up their base and to navigate from the complex tax laws, due diligence, and fundraising. He regularly contributes on the articles on income tax issues to various publications. He has obtained a diploma in international taxation from ICAI and commerce degree from Punjab University, Chandigarh. He is also a co-author of highly acclaimed book Trust and NGO Ready Reckoner and contributed widely regarded book and master guide to Income Tax Act. I would like to now request Girdhari ji to introduce PR Kothari ji.
Let me introduce. I have a privilege to have PR Kothari ji with me. So I seek permission from Kedari ji to speak about PR Kothari ji. Although Mr. Kothari ji is such a person, I know him personally for last 15 or so years, and he's a calm and good person. Whenever I approach him, then he is always ready to provide all the support. He qualified as a chartered accountant in January 78, and for last 45 years, he is serving the society in the professional forum. And he has been a past president of Directors Professionals Association. He has been regularly contributing the articles on several taxation methods to several study circle journals. He is a regular speaker on taxation method, and he provides. He is very thorough in the taxation, and in any case, means not only the NPO and as regards the taxation subject is concerned, income tax is concerned, whatever matter is there, if anyone approaches him, he is always available, and he provides solution to this one. So with these remarks, I welcome PR Kothari. Session now to PR Kothari for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Vinayji, for kind remarks made about me. I am not such a so good person as you have mentioned it. But anyway, I first of all I thank Nitesh ji to give me this opportunity to moderate or chair this session. I also welcome the learned speakers, Dr. Manoj Fogla, my friend Suresh Kejriwal ji, and the learned speaker Tarun Kumar Madan ji. The charitable trust is such a subject that the those who are dealing with the charitable trust always face difficulties in interpreting such complex law, which has been actually incorporated in the section 1023C and section 11 to 13. Thereafter also there are so many other sections. Now the exit tax also, there are so many other provisions, very difficult to interpret, very difficult to implement. So it is a very good opportunity for the participants also to learn something from these learned speakers. The galaxy of the speakers, Dr. Manoj Fogla, Suresh Kejriwal ji, and the Tarun Madan ji. Actually, I would not take much time. Let us go directly to the subject. And the first of all, we will discuss the subject in the three tranches. First will be about the new circular giving new lease of life for those defaulters who couldn't make it to apply for the registration, etc., as per the deadlines fixed by the Act. So therefore, first tranche, this circular will be discussed, and thereafter the provisions which have been incorporated recently for maintaining book and keeping books of accounts. And thereafter, we will discuss the audit reports, the revised form of the audit report, Form 10B and 10BB. So first of all, let us take the issue of the circular recently issued on 24th May 2023, and I would call Dr. Manoj Fogla to please deliberate upon it, and thereafter Dr. Suresh Kejriwal or Suresh Kejriwal ji and Tarun Madanji can also join with him. Thank you, sir.
Namaskar, Kothari ji. Good evening, friends. Now we will be starting, as the chair of the session has already apprised that we will take up 3 sessions. Why we have divided into 3 sessions? So that individually we can take up your concerns, queries at the end of each session. So that there are so many things, so many procedural issues, because recently we are grappling with so many changes, particularly for chartered accountant, practicing chartered accountants. The registration processes have changed. Now we no longer have this 5-year registration. There was a concept of provisional registration and 5-year registration. This concept of provisional registration for all practical purposes have been done away with in the budget 2023. But people who were eligible for 5-year registration, as on 31st March 2021, many organizations failed to take registration. Many organizations got provisional registration instead of 5-year registration. Many organizations applied in wrong code. Initially, the CBDT made mistakes by issuing certificates, 5-year certificates to organizations applying for provisional registration. And many organizations eligible for 5-year registrations were given provisional registration because of the error in filing of the return. And those who had provisional registration could not apply for regular registration within 6 months. So there were so many anomalies which resulted in so many tax demands where the organization's orders were now last 3-4 months we have started receiving orders in which demands have been made denying benefits of 11 and 12. So thankfully CBDT has issued a circular, and in circular a lot of concerns have been addressed, because if a 12-year registration is cancelled, cancellation provisions are invoked. So, and cancellation would, apart from the normal assessment taxes, the organization as a whole will be subject to an one-time exit tax. So to avoid that, CBDT has issued a circular. We will run through that circular methodically, and after that we will be taking up books of accounts and the audit report. The audit report now is quite a complex report and with lot of obligations and responsibility, onus on the chartered accountants, the auditors, to certify so many things and so many new records. Almost 18 different types of records are required to be maintained by the charitable institutions, and those have to be certified by the auditors, including the place where the records are there. So many practical issues are arising out of the Form 10B report or the books of account vis-a-vis the Act. So we are, as you were saying, we are methodically taking one by one. To first discuss the circular, I invite Suresh ji so that he will make a clinical presentation. Suresh ji is the person, is the kind of person, is so thorough. So even we have the doubts on taxation, or we want to refer to, instead of seeing the Act, we call Suresh ji, and so that is how. So let us take the advantage of his presentation, and his presentation has been prepared in such a way that you can keep a copy of the presentation. There are slides where we have given bird's eye view of what are the documents to be kept under Form 10B and 10BB registration. So a lot of things are there. So let us invite Suresh ji and listen from him.
Thank you, thank you, Manoj ji, and thank you, Kothari ji, for. कुछ बोल रहे हैं कोठारी जी? Thank you, Kothari ji, for giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts on the issues. And when Manoj ji has said that a lot of issues has been resolved through the circular, means there were a number of issues. Some of them have been addressed and some of them have not been addressed. And let us know why this circular is there and what are the issues have been resolved, and still what are the issues which is still pending to be resolved, and what is the way forward for those things. So let me share my presentation. प्रेजेंटेशन आ रहा है ना? प्रेजेंटेशन क्लियर है?
जी भैया एकदम क्लियर है.
ओके. ये तीन की बात हो गई है. So basically the first part हमारा जो है, we are dealing with consequences of non-filing of application for re-registration or reapproval or conversion of provisional registration to normal registration. So first we understand what is the amendment by Finance Act 23 and which resulted into this circular. So we all know this Finance Act 23 has levied the aggregated tax, a new provision applicable from the assessment year 23-24. And what was the pre-amendment position? As per the new registration requirement, every existing registered organization under section 12A and 12AA need to re-register for 5 years under the new scheme of registration. The re-registration shall be valid for 5 years and thereafter it is going to be again renewed. And once the provisional registration is granted, one need to convert into a regular registration. So basically the 12 registered organizations were subject to re-registration, and after 5 years they were again subject to renewal. And once we get the provisional registration, we were subject to convert them into a regular registration. And then the department found that in some of the cases, the organizations has not applied for the 5-year registration, and they thought they are escaping from the income tax net without paying the exit tax. And because of this thought process in their mind, they have amended section 115 TD, and they have levied aggregate tax. And they provided that the trust institution registered in section 12AB or approved under section 1023C shall deemed to have been converted into any form not eligible for registration or approval in the previous year if it fails to make an application for re-registration. Means if the 12 registered organization has not made any application for re-registration for 5 years, that means they have failed to make them re-registration. So this is your default under 115 TD. Again, if it fails to make an application to convert provisional registration to normal registration, and if it fails to make the renewal renewed every 5 years, and they are saying the date of default shall be the last date on which the application should have been made. And what are the implications for this? Let us understand through this presentation. The application for re-registration and re-approval by the existing registered and approved organizations, where the timeline was initially for 3 months up to June 22, then extended to March 22, and then extended to 25/11/22. Even after 25/11/22, if one has not made any application, even after 25/11/22, then that organization shall be subject to aggregate tax under section 115 TD. So that means all the existing organization under section 12A as on 31st March 21, and they have failed to make an application latest by 25/11/22, then they will be subject to aggregate tax, and the date of default will be 25/11/22. So this is the one category of default. And second category of default was application for new cases for provisional registration and approval that is required to be applied for a normal registration within 6 months of the start of the charitable activity, or 6 months prior to the last date expiry of the registration certificate. And in many cases, and the last date for such cases was 30th September 22. And it was came to the notice that in number of cases, in number of cases, the application were not submitted for converting provisional registration to normal registration. And again, as per the amendment made by Finance Act, where application made after the extended deadline of 30th 9/22, then the organization shall be subject to aggregate tax under section 115 TD, and the date of default will be 30th 9/22. So basically, before this circular, all these type of organizations who have failed to submit their application for 5-year registration, or they have failed to submit their application for converting provisional to regular registrations within the extended timeline or within the timeline as applicable to them, then all such cases shall be directly covered under section 115 TD. And we all know 115 TD means they have to pay the tax at the net asset value at the maximum marginal rate. The huge tax for them only just for non-filing of the application. So this circular gives relief to such cases. And the circular provides first for the form number 10A, that is the entities which are required to apply for 5-year registration by submitting form number 10A. And here there are two types of cases. One is where no application is made till date. But they have not made any application for 5-year registration till after 25, till date means even today they have not made an application. And second category was they have not made application, but they applied for provisional registrations. But the circular has covered the cases which have not made for 5-year registration by 25/11/22, but they applied for provisional registration after the deadline of 25/11/22. So this circular covers the two category of cases. One category of cases means they have not yet applied and they have not taken provisional registration. Second category they have taken only the cases which should have been applied for 5-year registration, but they have applied for provisional registration only after 25/11/22. So that means the circular has escaped the situations where the provisional registration have been obtained after 31st March 22 when the first deadline was missed, and in between 31st March 22 to 25/11/22. In some of the cases, within the financial year 21/22, the provisional registration has been granted to the 5-year registration cases. But in such cases, the circular is covered only those cases which have been obtained after 25/11/22. So for the cases where no application has been made, the circular says they have to submit a fresh application up to 30th September 2023. And they have to submit two applications, one for 12AB and one for 80G, the two separate applications. And re-registration shall be granted for 5 years and no exit tax in some cases. Then the organization which have not filed so far and which have not obtained provisional registration, for them the process is very, very simple. They can apply now within 30th September 23, and they have to make two applications, one application for 12AB and one application for 80G. And registration shall be granted to them for 5 years, and there will be no exit tax because of this delay in submitting the application. The second category is where they were subject to 5-year registration, but they have obtained 5-year registration, and that is after 25/11/22. In such cases, the circular says they have to surrender their provisional registration first. They have to in the utility they have a surrender tab. By going to that surrender tab, you have to surrender this provisional registration, then submit a fresh application up to 30th September 2023. We have to submit again two applications, one for 12AB and one for 80G, and then the registration for 5 years shall be granted, and there will be no exit tax. So this is the relaxation given for a conversion to 5-year registration category, where we submit form number 10A. Only in such cases, the organization which have by default have taken the provisional registration, though they were eligible for 5-year registration, the circulars by default covers only those cases where the registration has been obtained, provisional registration is obtained after 25/11/22. The second category of relief is for the converting provisional registration to regular registration. Here the circular says, if the application in form number 10AB has not made so far and the time limit has expired. So in second category, they are saying the application form number 10AB has already been made, but beyond the time limit. Suppose your application was to be made on 30th 9/22, but you have made your application in December 22. In the first category, you have not made any application so far. In the second category, you should have made application by 30th 9/22, but you have made your application by December 22. And the third category, you made your application after September 22, and your order has also been passed, refusing your registration only on the ground that the 10AB was submitted beyond the timeline. So there are three categories of such cases. And the circular says in the first category where no application has been made, the process is very simple. They should submit application in form number 10AB by 30th/9/23. An application shall be considered and disposed of after hearing, and no exit tax for delay in filing application form number 10B. So where we have not submitted any application, just to submit 10AB, the normal process will follow because the 10AB is always through hearing. After hearing, the registration shall be converted to a normal registration. Where application has already been made, the circular says the pending application in form number 10AB shall be treated as valid application. There is no need to submit again. Your application shall be considered to be a valid application after this circular, and the application shall be considered and disposed of after hearing. And no exit tax for delay in filing of the application in form number 10B. And the cases where the application has already been disposed of by the CIT exemption, refusing to grant registration only on the sole ground that the application has been submitted after the due date, in such cases, the fresh application in form number 10AB has to be furnished within 30th/9/23. Application shall be considered and disposed of after hearing, and no exit tax for delay in filing of the application. But however, they have given this relaxation for 1023C approval and for 12AB, by default, they have not included such extension or such relief for converting provisional approval under section 80G to a normal approval. So that means when you have in your new cases, when the organization is applied both for registration and both for ATG, though through this circular they can regularize their registration under section 12AB, but their ATG, I understand they have escaped to mention the circular, but the question is the ATG relaxation is not there to make them normal if the timeline has already been extended. Apart from this relaxation, the circular also says, we all know the form number 9A and form number 10. The Finance Act 23 has provided to submit these forms prior to the due date of 2 months prior to the due date of submitting return. That means by August we have to submit. 9A means if we want to spend some amount excess in amount of the next year, and form 10 is we want to accumulate for 5 years. In those cases, as per the Finance Act, we were required to submit by August, though the original date was due date of submitting return by October. So this circular now says that the benefit of accumulation and deemed accumulation shall not be denied where form number 9 and form number 10 are furnished before the due date of submitting return. So they have given a relaxation in case the form 9A and 10 is delayed and it is submitted before the due date of submitting return, then the benefit of accumulation will not be withdrawn. And apart from that, they have also extended the timeline of furnishing 10BD form. We all know statement of donation and certificate of donation from 31st May to 30th/6/23. So these are in brief the relaxation given by the circulars. Now the issue raised, Manoj ji, if an existing organization has obtained provisional registration and want to continue with this, what shall be the implication under section 115D?
No. If a provisional registration has been taken by existing organization, then the provisional registration cannot become effective. And there will be from the date of lapse. So because the organization would be forfeiting its right to get a regular registration. So to our understanding, one time TD will be applicable. So therefore, our recommendation is that though the circular is saying that all provisional registration can after November 2022 are also eligible, but our recommendation is that the department's utility is allowing surrender of provisional registration, all provisional registrations which have not been regularized. So all provisional registration should be surrendered and a fresh form 10A should be filed, as now the timeline has been extended till 30th September. So that is what is our understanding.
Yeah.
Surajji?
Yeah, you're correct, because 115 TD says if a 12-way registered organization is not submitted the 5-year registration, then that not filing for 5-year registration itself is a default subject to 115 TD. So if that organization, instead of filing a 5-year registration, has obtained a provisional registration, so their first default continues. So in order to avoid any technical issues arising out of that default, it is always better to regularize for 5-year registration under this scheme. Now the second issue arises, Manoj ji, whether provisional registration obtained before 25/11/22, as we are discussing earlier also, whether that is covered under this circular or not, because the circular specifically mentioned provisional registration obtained after 25/11/22. They are not mentioning the provisional registration obtained before 25/11/22.
No, no, on a careful reading of the circular, it seems that writing after 25/11 circular is an enabling. It is an enabling clause. It doesn't mean that provisional registration obtained prior to 25/11/22 have been barred, because it is an enabling clause, because technically prior to 25/11/22, if the provisional registration has been applied, it was a mistake. But after 25/11/22, it was a normal decision on the part of the organization to go for provisional registration, because all windows had been closed and this circular was not there. So in that sense, 25/11 has been suggested. Our understanding is that all provisional registration which have not been regularized, should be surrendered. The Department of Utility is allowing it. Otherwise also, even if there is a legal dispute, there is no other option available to the organization because of the threat of 115 TD. So one, it doesn't look that circular is barring other organization. Two, even if there is confusion, the recommended practice would be to surrender provisional and apply 10A.
Yes, you're right, Manoj, because the basic intent of the circular is to done away the nuisance of 115 TD, basically, by the Finance Act 23. So I see no reason why the organization before 25/11/22 will not be allowed the benefit of this nuisance of 115 TD. Now, the third issue arises if an existing organization has obtained provisional registration due to wrong selection of code. In some of the cases, they should have selected wrong code number 1, but they have selected wrong code for provisional registration, and thereby they have received provisional registration. I think in those cases also we should follow the same process, Manoj,
yes.
just to surrender and.
Yes. Because surrender is the provisional across the board. It is allowing surrender, and it should be surrendered, because the other problem is that one should be mindful that there is a section called Section 11(7), which says that any existing registration. So though the 11(7) is about 1023C and Section 12A registration, both cannot be enjoyed simultaneously, which was the case earlier. So therefore, once a provisional registration is there, under the Act, provisional registration is on par with a regular registration. So once a provisional registration number is there, it would not be possible for the utility to issue another number. So in any case, it has to be surrendered, and the circular already provides specifically for 25/11/22 provisional registration, and other registration is also the department is allowing the surrender. Therefore, I think across the board the same methodology should be followed.
Now, the Manoj, the instances were also observed where a provisional organization wanted to apply for a provisional registration, but due to wrong selection of code, they ticked the 5-year registration. And without having 12A, but because of the wrong tick, and the first provisional registration has to be granted without verification, those organizations have been granted 5-year registrations, though they don't have a 12-year registration.
This is a very typical
so how those organizations.
No, this is, we have to understand that they were not eligible for 5-year registration, but they were granted. So it is not that the organizations have made a mistake. The department has also made a mistake, because those applications should have been rejected. So it is a mistake on both the part. So our advice would be that don't tomorrow. Now there is a provision that if any registration is taken by providing any false information or incorrectly taken, for that also 115 TD can apply. So for that, Sureshji, as we were discussing earlier, then organization may continue with the registration, but should file 154, a rectification petition, so that it can have protection against any future issues which may arise. So We don't see any other option. So maybe filing a 154 petition and continue with the registration, regular registration, and leave it to the department whether they continue the same registration or they are asked to go through any other process. So let it be at the discretion of the commissioner.
You're right, Manoj, because in such cases, 154 is the only solution, petition, because it's a mistake apparent from record. And at the same time, if their mistake is not resolved by 30th 9/23, I think these organizations should have been granted provisional registrations. That means these organizations should have applied also 10AB. So I think even if they are not granted the provisional registration, you apply for rectification petition and also submit form number 10AB, so that your 10AB doesn't become time barred. And now the issue is, as the relaxation has not been given for ATG, though they have given for 12AB and 1023C approvals, but now ATG, they have not given any relaxations. Now, what will happen to the organizations who have not applied for a conversion of ATG approval up to 30th 9/22? Now, for them, they have already collected the donation. They have to submit the statement of donation by 30th 6/23. So how the donation provision will be applicable to them?
No, their ATG was valid up to 30/9/2022. So to our understanding, up to that only the validity of ATG, because they had lawfully collected ATG and they did not prefer to continue it further. So 30/9/2022 should be the date up to which the formal registration should be considered. So you can add to this understanding.
No, you're right. Up to 30th 9 they can get, but now the issue would be how we are going to regularize it, because there is no relaxation in the circular. So what such institutions should do?
They can, because we don't know whether it has been deliberately kept aside, because earlier we were discussing that the main intent of the circular is to avoid 115 TD, to protect organization from this exit tax. That seems to be the main intention, and maybe that is why ATG has been excluded. But that is just a guess. So it could be an inadvertent miss, or so the organization at best they can make an representation to CVDT under 119, because of the representation only this circular has come. But that is something as an additional measure to take, but they cannot claim benefit of ATG beyond 39/22.
So in such cases, the organization may be advised to submit continuation petition before the CIT exemption. Otherwise, they will they have to apply again for provisional registration for ATG. Now we can take up the issues on this issue from the participants. Tarunji, you can.
Sir, may I raise a question? I'm Rajesh Sharma. My query is that, say, suppose an organization was given a provisional registration for financial year 22-23, and they have not applied for regular registration till date, though it was a continuing organization from earlier, but they have not earlier filed for a registration any time. First time they applied for registration and they got the provisional registration for 22-23 and onward. Now the question is that, suppose we today surrender the provisional registration and go and apply for a fresh registration, what will be the status of exemption under section 11 for the financial year 22-23? Whether the auditor will have to file return audit report net 10B, or claim the exemption, party will claim the exemption.
This organization was in 12 registered organization prior to March 21 also.
No, it was not registered under 12A earlier. First time they had applied earlier, but it was rejected. But effectively, they were not having any registration as on date on 31st for 31st March 22. So they got fresh registration, provisional registration from 23 onward. Now earlier they were not having a registration. It was the first time they have provisional registration.
So the provisional registration, which it was applied in which previous year, financial year?
it was applied in March 2022, and it was available for 23 onward. 22-23 onward.
Suresh ji, this circular, the clarification that the provisional registration will be available from the year in which is applied, whether that benefit will accrue to this organization or not, that is the question.
In their case, they are not an existing organization as on 31st March 21. They are applied first time for provisional registration, and they have not applied for 10AB. Now 10AB time has already been extended. So they should just submit a 10AB application and authorize their registration under section 12AB. Only the ATG they will be missing because of the new circular has not covered ATG. So from them, for you as
he is asking the financial year in which they had made application. I think for that also they will get 12A benefit.
Yeah, after this circular, they are saying in the but the department is already giving the benefit according to that only. Though the act was not like that, but the exemption were given according to that only.
Sir, what we have done in Chandigarh Circle, we have applied for the registration, though our trust was existing from the last 20 years, but they applied for the first time in 22-23. But they have rejected the this final registration after giving provisional registration for 3 years, though we have applied for final registration in time.
And what was the reason for rejection?
Sir, they said they have given reason that you have applied after 25th of November. Therefore, you are
in those cases where that refusal is only because of the due date of return filing submission has been expired, the circular covers your case. You have to file a fresh application within 30th September, and your case will be fresh heard.
Because we have filed it within the 6 months, before the 6 months, but they have given the reason that you have filed it after 25/11 only.
No, even if it is an error at the end of the department, in either case, now in the light of this circular, you may apply afresh.
Yeah.
I think you will get it.
If fresh for this final registration or fresh for
10AB, yeah.
Converting provisional to normal, 10AB, form number 10AB.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Manoj sir, a trust which is eligible for a provisional registration under section 80G, it's an existing 12A registered trust and eligible for a provisional registration of 80G. First time applied for 80G, but department erroneously has issued 80G for 5 years, the final one. So shall we relax, or shall we adopt that 154 methodology as you just rightly suggested?
I think
the department has wrongly issued 80G for 5 years, that too a final one, not a provisional one for 3 years.
No, you should as a safeguard, you should file 154, because it will be extremely difficult for the department to take away the benefit, because in any case you are entitled for 3 years benefit.
But for 80G also we will be subject to that 115 TD provisions, as you said in section 12AB, because 80G is simply a donation receipts provision. So is 154 necessary?
That is not the issue. The issue here is that any kind of misrepresentation for the department, or enjoying benefits with any kind of suppression of information, because this mistake has happened. The mistake has happened from the end of the department, as we understand. But we don't know if there was some error in your form which resulted in that mistake. So any kind of suppression can also result into a cancellation proceeding. So our understanding, Suresh ji can add to it, that for a safeguard, for your safeguard, you should apply so that you cover yourself, because had it been a 3-year registration, you were required to apply for a regular registration. But because you got 5 year, you are unable to apply for regular registration. So because one process has been missed out because of the mistake of the department, and you are enjoying that 5-year registration, you are still under 3 years. So it will be extremely difficult for the department to deny you the first 3 years, even if they convert it into a provisional. So therefore, you are in a very low risk zone for filing 154. That you should not, I think, avoid.
The filing is also necessary because I know 12AB is regularized in your case, but ATG, because the rule says if any false information or wrongly issued, then they will deem to have never been issued. So all your 10B form, the advantage of the donor will be go away. So I think we have to avoid that position and we should apply 154.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, whether ATG will also be, we can reapply for ATG because they have rejected ATG also on the same grounds.
Provisional ATG approval or regular? Provisional approval?
Yeah, we have got provisional approval. And that too after 12/11/22 because we applied late after because it was our first year for application. We never applied earlier. Now they have rejected with the same reason that they are filed after 25 because you are filing for final registration after 25/11. Therefore, your ATG and 12A both are rejected.
I think Manoj can take up.
Yes, yes. Now, in your case, as we said, that the circular is specifically not providing for this provisional time relaxation for ATG. Okay. But in your case, there seems to be a mistake apparent from the record. Apparently, if you are within the time and by mistake they are saying outside, so you should move 154 and against this order. Simultaneously, you can go for an appeal also.
Right.
Sir, I have a question that there is a trust which was having an approval under 1023C. Okay, and accordingly it applied for the approval under the new law under 1023C. But it has got a provisional approval for 5 years in May 21. Now what should we do? The trust receipts are not exceeding 5 crores. So we should apply for fresh registration under 12A, taking the recourse of circular and surrender the provisional registration, or what should the recourse we take?
No, Suresh,
just I'm adding here. Just I'm first add here. When you are saying provisional registration for 5 years,
yes,
or you have got provisional registration for 3 years approval.
No.
3 years approval.
You have got the provisional. What is provisional? But the year of approval was 5 years or 3 years.
3 years. 3 years.
3 years. So that means by mistake, either you have submitted before March 21 or by selecting the wrong code, you have got the March 3 years approval.
Yeah, by selecting the wrong code.
Yeah.
Selecting the wrong code.
This we have discussed, I think, Manoj. They can go for surrender and they apply again for 5 years.
There are two things, and in case initially some registration were issued for 5 years, but the word provisional was there in the certificate. So if that is the case, then you need not do anything.
No, the period mentioned is 3 years, from assessment year 22-23 to 24-25.
So then you surrender that and apply. You can take the benefit of this circular.
Okay, and sir, one more problem is there we are facing. Like for another trust, we had applied for the approval under 1023C. There was an error. We had got provisional. Then again we applied there, but the code in which the registration was to be given, that is 1023C6. But they have by mistakenly given the approval under 1023C3. We have also filed 154, but till now no action has been taken by the department.
1026.3 Sureshji, what is this?
3 is not for approval cases.
It's not for approval cases. Approval cases will start from 4 only.
Yeah, so but there in this thing it is written as 1023C3.
Yeah,
so that is a mistake. But it is a typographical error, I think. So
yeah, so we had filed for 154 also, but
actually, we have taken up this issue with the CIT exemption here, and he's saying the system is not allowing to rectify the year. Then we take up this process with the CPC, and the CPC is saying they are also not in a position to change the year once it is granted. So I think they are in the process. I think if from the forum, if we persuade this case with the department, I think this will be resolved because of the technical lapse on the
not in a year.
It is the code, because they are unable to get benefit under 1023 C6 because
Yeah,
by
as
mistake it
we
is
are an
written.
educational charitable trust.
So that maybe you can put a grievance with the CPC also, and your 154 is there. So you have
Yes.
to wait for the disposal of your 154.
And then what do we give in the audit report, as we are not having 1023 C6 approval?
No, in audit report, in the main report, you can narrate that this is what has happened, and pending 154 petition, this audit report has been prepared.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Hello.
Yes,
question.
Good evening, sir. Sir, there is an educational institution who has never applied for 1023 registration, and they have been issued order treating all their receipts as income, and it will be taxed. So the client is now willing to go for a registration, but do they have any what do we call relief? Can they be granted any relief if they apply for registration now?
Now, look, the 12A registration, section 11 or 1023C benefit cannot be available retrospectively, particularly earlier it was possible, now it is not possible. But as you said that they have taxed the gross receipts. The gross receipts cannot be taxed. So even for an unregistered organization, now it is more or less a settled law that all expenditure towards educational purposes, if it is an educational institution, will be allowed, and only the surplus can be impugned and could be a subject matter of dispute or challenge, depending on the order. So that relief you can always get. You can see how much of excess of income over expenditure is there. That is the only part which is subject to tax, and for taxing the gross amount, you may move both the appeal as well as a 154 petition. Secondly, you may see whether the total receipts are below 5 crore. If the total receipts are below 5 crore, then maybe you should try to get that benefit of section 1020 C3 AC and AD. But that will depend on the assessment year. सूरज जी किस assessment year से 5 crore का available हो गया था?
21 से हुआ था, उसके पहले 1 crore का था.
हाँ, तो 21 से पहले अगर है तो वो आप एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं.
The assessment year are starting from 15-16, and they have been issued for 4 to 5 years.
तो आप फैक्ट्स देख लीजिएगा अपना, एंड फैक्ट्स देख करके देन यू हैव टू
आप देख लीजिएगा उसको. हाँ, चलिए.
Okay, what is the section number, sir? Relief section number?
Section 1023C, 3 AD and AC are the section where you have, earlier it was 1 crore and it was increased to 5 crore. So the medical and educational institutions.
Only submitting of a return was the requirement.
Returns was not submitted, sir.
Oh, then.
No relief.
Sir, I have a doubt. Now, with regards to the ATG registration, this particular NGO already has a provisional registration, and they had failed to apply for the permanent registration. So now, what's the next course of action that we could do, sir? I mean, should we surrender the existing registration? What happens to the donation after 13/9/2022? And what would be the situation for the current financial year, sir?
No, on the face of it, under the current circular and the department has given, you don't have any under the current circular, but the existing registration which was not applied in time. And have you applied for 10 AB at all, or you have not applied at all?
We had applied it after the due date, sir.
And it was rejected, or you are waiting for it?
Sorry, sir?
It is rejected, or what is the
No,
status?
we haven't still heard from the department yet. It's still under process, sir.
So then you have to wait for the disposal, and accordingly you may have to take appellate remedies. But on the face of it, beyond 3922, the donations you cannot validly claim. This is what our understanding is. Sureshji,
Okay.
I think if the application has not been disposed of, you can immediately submit your condolences petition with the severity and asking the reason why it has submitted late, and also citing that in similar situations for 12 AB the circular has granted relief. Then why not such relief should be granted for ATG? And you just make your application to severity so that you have a chance to go in appeal and to the High Court.
Okay. Fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Sir, I want to ask that we have got a rectification notice under section 154. In that, they have not granted us the exemption under section 11.
This is the assessment issue or registration issue?
Sir, this is the issue that we had a delay in filing Form 10A.
Maybe we can.
10B, I think.
Sir, the last date this was the first time application for this 10A. Due to COVID, they have got the provisional approval on 31st March 2022. They have got the registration done on 31st March 2022. But for the financial year 2021, they have not got the exemption. Sir, but the extension in the circular 1621 CBDT has condoned a delay regarding this till 25th of November 2022. So I was just thinking that why they have not granted the exemption if the time limit has been extended to 25th of November 2022.
Your case was an existing organization, 12-year registered organization as on 31st March 21?
Yes, sir. It was a registered organization and they have got the registration till perpetuity. But this section has came on, the filing was for 30th June 2021. The first date was given on 30th June 2021.
So why you have given the 3 years registration then? Wrong code or what was the reason?
So the thing is that we had a delay in applying for 10A.
No, but delay was up to 25/11 you could have applied. When you have applied?
We have applied till on 31st March 2022 under the extent.
I think you should see your application. You must have selected the wrong code. Otherwise, if you have selected the right code, you should have been granted 5-year registration only.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I'll check
And you are still eligible to file 10A.
And so you still eligible to file 10A. You surrender your registration and apply again.
You surrender the provisional and you apply.
Sir, we have filed 10A and we have received Form 10AC regarding the approval of the registration also. But as for the assessment year 2026 to 2027, we have got the registration, and we have got the exemption in the current year. But for the assessment year 2021, we have not got the exemption under section 11. That is the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can send it separately, but on the face of it, it looks you are eligible. You are eligible. You are an existing organization. Your 1020C should continue. There is no break, and your tax exemptions will continue. It could be a case you may have to ask for a 154 petition before the assessing officer to revise the order. And maybe separately you can share it. So because it is now we cannot afford too much of time, because until we understand the facts. So separately you can share these things to us. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, thanks.
Should we switch to next session or?
Yes. I think There are no more questions
Sir,
now.
Sir, one question, sir.
Actually, there are so many other questions which are related to the facts. So unless without understanding the full facts, the speakers would not be able to answer you properly. So therefore, you can send separately through Nitesh ji, etc., to the speakers, learned speakers, and I hope that they will reply you properly. So
Sir,
please let us
one
move
legal
to
question
the.
is there. Sir, one legal question is there.
Sir,
That,
one question, sir.
if the trusts were registered under section 12A, but they don't want to continue that registration of 12A, and so they have not applied for the registration of 5 years. Then also they will have to reply now to save it from section 115 TD.
Yes.
Yes.
But sir, now they are
No exit window. No exit window once you are registered.
Okay, no exit window.
Without paying exit tax.
Because now their turnover are
The government is now very clear, and under FCRA, if you want to exit, you have to all the asset vest with the government.
No, sir, but those
under
are
income tax,
sir,
only through exit tax payment you can be out.
Sir, they are educational trust with turnover less than 5 crores. So now they want to shift to 1023C. So they were not interested to continue with 12A. This means now they have to get themselves compulsory registered under section 12AB.
No, you take 12AB, but while filing the return, you can still claim under 1023C, 3AC and AD, whichever is applicable.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
We have received a order from CPC. They have not.
Last में भी ले सकते हैं question. Last में आधी घंटा है अपने पास में.
Hello.
Please.
Sir, I think we should start moving to the next session, sir.
Let us move to the next session. The learned speakers, Dr. Fogla, Suresh Kejriwal ji, has replied very nicely and patiently all the questions from the floor, from the participants. And I think most of the queries has been addressed successfully, and everybody has got solution. So let us move to the next chapter, that is our books of accounts. So books of accounts, for that books of accounts provisions, I would invite Sri Tarun Madanji to initiate the discussions, and thereafter the Dr. Fogla and Kejriwal ji can join. So please, Tarun Madanji, please.
Sir, can you please restore my host rights? I think it's.
Sir, I have done it.
Let me do. Thank you.
कब बिल भेजी थी उसको 31 ये तो क्या 31,500
Good evening, everyone. Namaskar. So our next topic is regarding the maintenance of books of accounts and other documents. So we'll be covering this section into 4 parts. First part is what exactly is the requirement to maintain books of accounts, and what will be the implications if you fail to maintain those books of accounts. Secondly, what is the method of accounting which should be followed by charitable organizations? And then there is a newly inserted rule 17AA, which is applicable with effect from 10th of August 22. What are the requirements? What are the books to be maintained? What are the other documents to be maintained? What is the prescribed manner in which these documents are to be maintained? At which place these documents are to be maintained, and the period for which these documents are to be maintained. Then we have summarized this rule towards the end of our PowerPoint presentation. So we'll be starting with what exactly is the requirement to maintain books of accounts. So friends, before I jump to the requirement to maintain the books of accounts, we need to understand the scheme of taxation to the charitable trust. So scheme is basically governed by section 11 to 13. And section 11 provides that what all incomes are exempt, which are held under property held under trust. And section 12 talks about the voluntary contributions. And section 12A provides the conditions subject to which the exemption under section 11 and 12 is available. So there are 4 conditions. First one is conditions to obtain a registration. So we just had a session on the registration, and there are many queries. What exactly is the registration? So first of all, a charitable institution has to obtain the registration. Then there is a second condition, which is to maintain the books of accounts. Third condition is to get your books of accounts audited. And fourth condition is to submit an income tax return. So one of the conditions to claim an exemption is to maintain your books of accounts. So basically, if you fail to maintain the books of accounts, you will not be able to claim the exemption under section 11 and 12. So earlier, there was no explicit provision under the Income Tax Act to maintain the books of account. This provision was introduced by the Finance Act 22 to maintain the books of accounts. This provision reads as follows. So there was a section 12A1B clause 1. It provides that where the total income of the trust or institution as computed under this act without giving effect to the provisions of section 11 and 12 exceeds the maximum amount limit which is not chargeable to income tax in any previous year, the books of account and other documents have to be kept and maintained in such form and manner and at such place as may be prescribed. So please appreciate there are two things to be maintained. First one is books of accounts and second thing is other documents. Now, what exactly do we mean by the books of accounts and what other documents are to be maintained? These are prescribed in Rule 17AA. The other question is, does this requirement applies to all the charitable trust or religious trust? So if your entity is registered, you have to maintain the books of accounts. And second important criteria is if your income exceeds the maximum amount, which is not chargeable to income tax, only then this requirement applies. So if your income receipts are more than 2,50,000, then you need to maintain the books of accounts. So what are the implications if you fail to maintain the books of accounts? So basically, if a trust fails to comply with these conditions, the benefit of exemption under section 11 and 12 shall not be available. This is a very important thing. So basically, if you fail to maintain the books of accounts, you will not be eligible to claim the exemption benefits. Then how the income will be computed for such trust? So law has inserted a special sections to compute the income in such cases. There is section 13, subsection 10 and 13, subsection 11, which is effective from assessment year 23-24. According to this scheme of computation, you have to compute your income. Similarly, there is requirement to maintain books of accounts for the business run by the trust. And if the trust fails to maintain the books of accounts for that particular business, then that could also lead to the cancellation of registration. So how to compute the income under section 1310 and 1311 if you fail to maintain the books of accounts? Your income will not be computed as per the provisions of section 11 and 12. You have to go to the section 13, subsection 10 and 13, subsection 11. So income is to be computed after deduction of expenditure incurred in India. So basically no deduction will be allowed if there is any expenditure incurred outside India. No deduction shall be allowed for a capital expenditure, which is otherwise allowable under section 11 and 12. So we are allowed to claim the revenue expenditures as well as capital expenditures. But if you fail to maintain the books of accounts, you cannot claim the deduction for capital expenditure. You cannot claim the expenditure out of your corpus or loans and borrowings. Depreciation shall not be allowed if you have claimed the full cost of that asset as an application of income in any earlier year. If you have made any inter-charity donations, that is contribution or donation to any person or any other trust, you will not be able to claim that while computing income under special provisions of 1310 and 1311. If you fail to deduct TDS, then that particular expenditure will be disallowed to the extent of 30%. If you made any cash payment in excess of 10,000 against a single bill, that will also be disallowed while computing the income. Now, how to decide that whether a trust has not maintained the books of account or not? So this responsibility has been casted upon an auditor. So auditor has to certify in an audit report that books of accounts are not maintained. So if you see the revised format of form 10B and 10BB, there is a clause 14 in form 10B and clause 11 in form 10BB, wherein the auditor has to certify that whether the books of accounts and other documents have been kept and maintained in the prescribed format, which is given in the Rule 17AA. So basically, the auditor has to ensure that books of accounts are maintained and in the prescribed manner. So just like you file the form 3CD for the tax audit cases where you need to mention that there are regular books of accounts are maintained for the business class of taxpayers, similar requirement has been inserted for the NGOs now, which was earlier not there. So basically, auditor has to report in the audit report based on which the exemption computation under section 11 and 12 will be dependent. Similarly, if you report in the audit report that books of accounts are not maintained, you have to give the computation under section 1310 and 1311. This responsibility is also casted upon the auditor. This is a very big responsibility. Basically, no one will come and say, like NGO come and say, admit it themselves that I am not maintaining the books of accounts. Basically, this responsibility by the law has been casted upon the auditor by way of audit reports, that wherein he has to submit that books of accounts are not maintained and that income has to be computed under the special provisions. And not only you have to certify that books are not maintained, you have also to give the computation of income in a special manner. That has to be reported in clause 39 of form 10B, although there is no similar clause in form 10BB to report that computation. Now there is very important issue. What will be the impact of that not maintaining the prescribed books of accounts under section 1310 and 1311 on the NGOs and the auditor? So I'll invite Manoj sir to share the views on this huge implications.
No, as Tarun, you have, because we are just beginning, because now we are talking about an impact on the auditor, because normally with an audit in an assessment, we normally don't talk about the impact on the auditor, but the form 10B has been structured in such a way that the auditor is doing the job of the assessing officer to a great extent. And if the auditor is not doing it, then it becomes, because all these things are kind of earlier, there was no specific certification of the annexure to the form 10B report. So basically we were preparing just a plain 10B and 10A reports, but now the annexure is specifically certified and the auditor is to certify and to say that it is true and correct. So if the assessing officer applies 1310 and 11, 1310 and 11 is basically forfeiture. It is a forfeiture provision that for that particular year, you are not an organization eligible for exemption. So what 12A is, for all practical purposes, withdrawn for that particular year. And 1310 provisions are to some extent similar to what is available under section 57 also. Because under section 57 also there are case laws that you will be allowed expenditure. Under 57 also capital expenditure will not be allowed. So once section 1310 is applied by the assessing officer, which was not reported by the auditor, it could be a case of negligence by the auditor, and it may result in negligence and disciplinary proceedings against the auditor. So therefore, one should be very careful about the auditing charitable institutions. Please want to add?
No, what you've covered is okay.
To summarize, basically, if you fail to maintain the books of account, your registration status for that particular year will not be lost. Your registration will remain intact. You don't have to go to the 5 heads of income to compute the income. Your income will be not computed under section 1112, but that will be computed under section 1310 and 1311. Now, what is the method of?
Is there not one more dimension to this note maintenance? If I can please point out that ATG 51 exemption to the donors, that may also be withdrawn because of non exemption under section 1112.
Because ATG 5 also one of the condition, because this 12 condition has been put last year only, but ATG 5 books of account is coming from past years. But there they have not prescribed what said constitute books of account, that has been prescribed only on August 22.
No, but we should understand that invocation of section 13 and 10 doesn't result in withdrawal of 12A status for even that year. So the assessment 12A registrations means that all your assessment will be done under section 11 to 13. And under 11 to 13 only a special chapter has been carved out which is resulting in a de facto forfeiture, but the 12-way registration will continue. 12-way registration is in the domain of the CIT, not in the domain of the assessing officer. Assessing officer will invoke section 13, and any act of assessing officer cannot have any impact on the 12-way registration. Therefore, I don't think there will be any impact on the 80G registration or the donation collected by invoking section 13. But section 1310 may result in section 12 AB cancellation proceeding. Consequently, only after cancellation only this 80G will be in danger.
So moving next to what is the method of accounting should be followed by charitable organizations. So basically there are popularly two methods. One is cash basis of accounting and second one is accrual basis of accounting. So which method should be followed? So if we go by the scheme of taxation, so section 12(1) uses the word received as against the word derived. So basically it uses the word received for voluntary contributions. So it is imperative that voluntary contributions should always be treated as income on a receipt basis and not on accrual basis while preparing the computation of income. And similarly, the application has to be considered on payment basis. So Finance Act 22 has inserted an explanation after section 11(7). So this explanation provides that any sum payable by any trust shall be considered an application of income in the previous year in which such sum is actually paid. Thus, the application of income shall be allowed only on a payment basis. This is irrespective of the previous year in which the liability to pay such sum was incurred by such trust according to the method of accounting regularly employed. So basically, application has to be allowed on the payment basis and not on the accrual basis. So based on this factor, it is advisable that charitable organization shall use the cash basis of accounting and not the accrual basis of accounting. But again, there is a confusion. That confusion is because of the requirement to file Form 9A, which says that if you have not received the amount because of any reason, you can consider it as a deemed application by filing the Form 9A. But if the income is to be considered on receipt basis, then why there is a requirement to file Form 9A? But you can use the cash basis of accounting, and there could be a reason deduction of TDS on certain incomes like interest, etc. That could be taken on accrual basis to claim the TDS credit, because otherwise it could result in the mismatch of Form 26AS and your computation, and there could be adjustment in the intimation in 143(1). So now, as I said, there is a confusion because there is an option to file Form 9A due to the non-receipt of income, whereas section 12(1) says that income should be taken into account on the receipt basis. So sir, isn't both these provisions are contradictory in nature?
And in some sense, they are contradictory, but as we understand, as you have already discussed, that there are the Income Tax Act, section 11 begins with the word receipt. So it is in a very unambiguous word. It says that the income should be commercially computed and what is actually available, because the charitable organization basically is what is actually available. There are so many case laws, so many high court also have decided that the money should be actually available to the organization. There is no presumptive, because the organization cannot be expected to apply 85% of what is not actually available to the organization. So that is also one of the reasons, because there is a condition of 55% application, and therefore also this receipt becomes very important. So this 9A form, in some sense, if you see, 9A allows that you can spend when you receive. That is what 9A is. So for some reason you have not received the income. So, and because you cannot be compelled to spend 85% in the year without receiving, so it is kind of an enabling provision which come out of the same rationale, but it looks to be a contradiction. What we suggest that for income tax purposes, all those receipts which are subject to TDS, they probably can be accounted on accrual basis. Otherwise, your 26AS and all these things will go haywire. Or if there is some specific income where TDS has been deducted, then only you should recognize and file 9A. Otherwise, as a practice, it is not recommended to accrue the income and file Form 9A. Both are unnecessary. But of course, that this provision in some sense is contradiction of the above provision, but one should use Form 9A limited to receipts subject to TDS. All other things maybe should not be treated as income. Sureshji?
Sir Foglaji, may I interrupt?
Yes, please.
Sir, in this case, may I draw your attention that in the Income Tax Act, there is also a provision that this TDS can be carried forward and this can be claimed only in the year in which the income is recognized or income is offered. So whether in case of trust and this 11, 12, etc., this law can be applied, just whatever we are discussing.
No, that is what. Yes, sir, you are correct, because the section 11(1) has two options. One, you have the money available with you and you are not able to spend it. And the other is that for some reason the money is not in your access, not necessarily accrue. So whenever the money comes to the hands of the organization, there. So I think you are correct. Those kinds of case-to-case basis circumstances are there where this enabling provision of Section 11, explanation to Section 11(1) and Form 9A should be used. So that is what we are saying. We are not taking any specific position of this way or that way.
Sir, may I interrupt here?
Please.
I want to add one thing. Sir said that there's a contradiction. I would like to draw your attention towards Section 11. Section 11 says, income derived from property. While that received is in the Section 12, which is saying for the voluntary contribution only, which is voluntary contribution is received, that is on receipt basis, while the income, other income is that is on derivable basis. Derivable means it includes accrual. That is why 9A is included there. It is my humble submission. I may be wrong.
No. Actually, it is because you allow us to present actually, and let us not have bilateral discussion.
Please don't interrupt.
After this,
let us. We have the question answer session separately. Please.
If you want to correct the speaker, maybe you can use the plenary. Don't during the session.
It is not correction.
No. Allow me to speak.
Sorry, sir.
Please let us continue this learned speaker.
Yes, but the Section 11(1) uses the word receipt, not Section 12. So kindly read the Section 11(1). The 11(1), the last word is receipt, but I don't want to call because you can use. We have one hour in plenary. You can take it up, but the receipt word is used in the Section 11(1) itself. So with that, maybe we can shift to the next key issue.
Sir, second issue is we have discussed that under Section 11(7), there is a explanation inserted which says that application of income has to be allowed on the payment basis. At the same time, there is an expenditures like depreciation, which are non-cash expenditures. Can it be claimed as an application after insertion of that explanation?
Look, the section explanation under Section 11(1), after the insertion, now the Income Tax Act for all practical purposes is saying that income on receipt basis and payment application on payment basis. That is what is coming out. But depreciation is not something which is subject to payment. So depreciation is an allowable expenditure. By inherent nature, no payment is attached to it. So it is a non-cash expenditure. So there is no reason why depreciation will not be allowed. Otherwise, Section 11(6) will become otious and redundant, which specifically allows the procedure of claiming depreciation. So there is no bar or problem in claiming depreciation after this explanation to Section 11(6), 11(7) under payment.
Sir, again, there is another very, very crucial issue. What shall be the treatment of advance paid to vendors? Because it has to be allowed on the application has to be allowed on the payment basis. So assume my expenditure belongs to next year, but I have paid the advance to the vendor in the current year. in which year such advance shall be allowed as an application of income?
Now, the issue is that when a payment becomes application, when legally we can claim that it is an eligible application under section 11(1)(a), and that is where it should be treated. So now, because everything is on payment basis, this advance becomes a crucial issue. What is an advance? To my understanding, the advance, because it is a controversial issue again, so we can briefly touch upon, and maybe if we get time, again we will touch it up on the later part at the end of the session, is that advance, if something is lying and which is at the discretion of the organization to recover, sometimes we treat part payments as advance. So suppose under construction contract you have paid some advance saying that 30% of payment, then after completion of another 50% of construction, another 30% of payment. These are, though the word advance may be used, but these are part payments. To our understanding, such payments should be claimed as application in the year of payment. Otherwise, under the new law, it will be extremely complicated because there is no provision to claim in the if you have not claimed the advance in the year of payment, in the subsequent year you cannot claim it as application because it has to be on payment basis. So that is how advance, one thumb rule we can follow, that legally and as per the contract with the vendor, if the advance can be treated as a part of your cash and bank balances. Suppose you say the advance with your staff, some staff is carrying some petty cash, so that can be a part of your cash and bank balances. All those advances need not be treated as application, but all those advances which are in the nature of part payment should be treated as application. This is a thumb suggestion we are doing it. There are so many nuances attached to it, which if time permits, we will take it up later.
So as we told you that there is insertion of rule 17AA, which was inserted by notification number 94 by 22 dated 10th of August 22. So what are the requirements under these rules? So it says that you are required to maintain the books of accounts. Then you are required to maintain the other documents. What is the manner of keeping books of accounts and other documents? At which place these books are to be maintained and the period for which these books are to be retained by the NGO. So we'll take up these issues one by one. But before we start taking up these issues, there is another very crucial aspect, because this is the first year in which there is a requirement to maintain the books of accounts. And that requirement was inserted by Finance Act 22 with effect from assessment year 23-24. But that rule was inserted in the mid of year, which was made effective from the 10th of August 22. Now, whether we need to maintain the books which are prescribed under the rule for the entire year or only post 10th of August 22.
Tarunji, my understanding is this: what are the additional documents they have prescribed? Because they have prescribed 10 additional documents. Because cash book, bank book, the NGO has to maintain otherwise also. So I think that the additional document which were not maintained before 10/8/22, I think those can be maintained after 10/8/22. There is no need to go back for those documents. But the regular books which are already required to maintain, and you have to maintain from 1/4/22 only. It is not that the books of account should be maintained only from 10/8/22. So now we are maintaining the books of account already. Only we have to see what are the additional documents and what are the additional informations we have to preserve. And those things has to be from 10/8/22.
Now, what are the specified books of accounts? So there are 8 books of accounts which are required to be mentioned. So first one is cash book, then ledger, then journal, then copies of the bills, whether machine numbered or otherwise serial numbered, wherever such bills are issued by the assessee. So it is very important. It talks about the bills which are issued by the NGO, not the bills received by it. So basically, record of all the bills which are issued by the assessee, they are to be maintained. Then comes the original bills, wherever issued to the person, and receipts in respect of payments made by the person. So whatever bills are received by NGO, they are to be maintained. And very important requirement that bills are to be maintained in an original copy. Now, how this requirement will be fulfilled, it has to be seen, because these days we receive the invoices on the WhatsApp, email. How the original bill copy will be retained by the NGOs, it will be a very challenging situation. Next requirement is any other books that may be required to be maintained in order to give true and fair view of the state of affairs of the person and explain the transactions effected. It is basically a residuary requirement wherein you need to maintain any other book that will give the true and fair view of your state of affairs. And in a line item, we have mentioned the code. What are these codes? As I told you that there is a requirement to report whether books are maintained or not in the audit report in form 10B and 10BB. So in the 10B, you have to report item wise that out of these, which books are maintained, which documents are to be maintained. These codes are pertaining to form 10B. So while Suresh sir will be taking up next session on the audit reports, you will be able to relate it better. So next requirement is to maintain all those books which we just mentioned on the previous slide in respect to the business undertaking, which is referred in section 11.4. And if there is any other business that is incidental to the attainment of objects of the charitable organization, for that purpose, you also need to maintain all those records like cash book, journal, ledger. All those records are to be maintained for the business carried on by the trust as well. Now it says that you need to maintain copies of bills, whether machine numbered or otherwise serial numbered, wherever such bills are issued by the assessee, and the copies or counter files of machine numbered or otherwise serially numbered receipts issued by the assessee. So issue here is what shall be the difference between the copies of serially numbered bills and copies of the counter files of receipts in the case of NGO.
But continue, Suresh.
Tarunji, I understand when they talks about copies of serially numbered bills, that means when an NGO raises an invoice, suppose there's a income junction program and they have to raise the invoice, then the serially numbered bills or in the invoice raised by them, they must preserve the copies. And when they are talking about copies of the counterfile of the receipts, they are talking about when you are collecting the donation and you are issuing the receipt, then the counterfile or the copies of those receipts has to be preserved. Or suppose you're making payment to the vendor and you are issuing receipts to the vendor, then those counterfiles of the receipts should be preserved by the SSC as a part of this books of account. Manoj, you can add here if you.
No, I think because no other interpretation is coming out of it, but that probably seems to be the issue is that you cannot have ad hoc instruments and supporting documents. So whether it is on the receipt side or on the payment side, sometimes what happens, donation invoices when they are raised, they can be raised sequentially. But donation receipts, multiple books are issued and multiple books of money receipts are kept at multiple places. So that is where the organization may maintain a systematic way the counterfoils and they could be related. So that probably is the distinction between the receipt side and the invoicing side. So that is what we are making out of it.
Sir, again, that issue I raised, that Rule 17AA provides that original bills shall be maintained. So as we are into the digital world, we are living into the digital world, what is the practical relevance if scanned copy of a bill is received from a vendor over an email or a WhatsApp? Will that be fulfill the requirement of rule?
No. Now it is not necessary that you should have physical copies, but you may have digital copies, you may have computer copies, but they should be approved digital copy. Because when an invoice, you get an invoice, it is written that it is a computer generated invoice and a physical printout is not necessary, or a digitally signed instrument. But you keeping a scanned copy of a physical invoice which was physically issued by the vendor, that would not be permitted. Auditor should be extremely careful, because in this today's electronic and digital world, to have proper understanding of an admissible evidence in digital form, electronic form, and physical form. Whatever is kept in physical form, scanned copy will not be permitted. So that would be the responsibility of the auditor to segregate all these things.
So apart from the books of accounts, you are also required to maintain some other specified documents. So what are these documents? So basically it is details of all the projects and institutions, details of all the incomes, details of application of incomes, voluntary contributions, loans and borrowings, and some other documents. So we'll discuss one by one what are details are to be maintained and what is the format in which these records are to be maintained. So first requirement is record of all the project institutions run by the person with the following details. So you have to maintain the name of the project institution, address and objective for which this project is being run. Second requirement is to maintain the record of income of any person during the previous year. You have to maintain the record of voluntary contributions received from these projects, income from property held under trust as referred in section 11, and then the income of fund other than the contribution referred in 1 and 2. So basically, whatever your receipts are from these projects, you have to maintain all the records of these projects. Regarding the voluntary contributions, you have to maintain the name of the donor, address, amount, PAN or Aadhaar if it is available with you. So basically, you should also collect the PAN or Aadhaar. It will help you in the filing of the statement of donations in Form 10 PD. Otherwise, you will not be able to put that amount in.
Payment కావాలంటే మీరు తర్వాత చేసుకోవచ్చు 28th వరకు ఎప్పుడైనా చేసుకోవచ్చు.
Then you have to maintain the records of application of
రిటర్న్ ఇప్పుడు అమౌంట్ సో అని చెప్పి ఫైల్ చేస్తాం. So
what are the details to be maintained with respect to application of income? And here you have to maintain the name and address of the person to whom any credit or payment is made. You have to mention the amount of applications and the object for which this application is made. If you have made any inter-charity donations, that is, if you have made any amount to some other charitable organizations, you have to maintain the name of the entity, address to which the donation is made, what is the amount paid or credited, PAN number, and the object for which credit or payment is made. Why they are asking for the object? Because inter-charity donations are allowable as an application only if it is made to some NGO having a similar object. Otherwise, they are not allowable as an application of income. If you have made any application of income outside India, you have to maintain the name and address of the person when any credit or payment is made, amount of application, object for which this application is made. If there is any deemed application regard to Form 9A, you have to mention the reasons for claiming such deemed application. If you have filed any Form 10, you have to maintain the details of all these. What all amounts you have invested in 11.5 modes, that records are to be maintained. If you have invested any amount in modes other than 11.5, that records are also to be maintained. So you have to maintain the record of application out of income. This is very important. Application should be out of income. For that particular purpose, you have to maintain the records. Name and address of the person to whom an application is made, amount of applications. If there was any accumulation, that has to be maintained, and the object for which the payment is made. If application is out of the deemed application, whatever you have accumulated by filing Form 9A to be spent in the next year, for that purpose also you need to maintain the following records: name and address of the person, amount of application, detail of the year of deemed application, and object for which the payment is made. If application is made out of accumulated funds, which are accumulated for 5 years by filing Form 10, all these details are to be maintained in a similar manner. Then the money invested in 11.5 modes for the application and money invested in other modes. Then you have to maintain the details of the voluntary contribution received towards the corpus. You have to maintain the name of donor who has given you the corpus donation, address, amount of contribution, PAN and Aadhaar. Application out of such voluntary contribution, if any amount is spent out of corpus, you need to maintain the records of that, to whom payment is made, for what objects this payment is made, and what is the amount paid. If you have made a corpus donation to some other entity, then you have to maintain these records: name of the donor, address, amount paid, PAN, object for which such an application is made. Then again, if any investment is made in 11.5 modes or some other modes. If contribution received during any previous year preceding the previous year towards corpus, if you have received corpus during some preceding previous year and application out of this fund is made, you have to maintain records for that as well. The records are similar. You have to maintain the name of the person, amount of application, object. If you have paid the donation out of such corpus fund to some other entity, you have to maintain the details of name of donor, address, amount paid, PAN, object for which such an application is made, then the amount invested out of such funds in 11.5 modes and other modes. And if you are receiving a contribution towards that ATG2B, that is temples for the reconstruction and repair, or a gurdwara or a church or a mosque, then you have to maintain the similar requirements for these organizations as well. If you have received any loans or borrowings, you have to maintain the records from whom the loan is taken, name of that person, amount and date of loan or borrowing, address of the lender, PAN number, Aadhaar number if available, amount and date of repayment. Basically, repayment schedule is also to be maintained. And if you had incurred any application out of that loan, then the details of that amount has to be maintained, name of the person to whom payment is made, amount of application, address. If application out of loan or borrowing from any preceding previous year is made, if you have received a loan in the past years and out of that amount that application is made, then similar records are to be maintained. If you have made any repayment of loan, then these records are to be maintained, name of the person to whom the repayment is made, amount of application, address of the person to whom the repayment is made. Then you have to maintain the records of the properties held by SSC. So you have to maintain the records of immovable property as well as movable properties. So with regard to the immovable property, you have to maintain the nature, address of the property, what was the cost of acquisition of that property, if there was any transfer of such property, the net consideration implies in acquiring the new capital asset, these details are to be maintained. For the movable properties, you have to maintain the nature of property and cost of acquisition of such assets. If you have done any transactions with the related parties, that is person specified under section 13(3), you have to maintain the record with regard to the name, address, PAN number of such persons, what all those transactions are done with these persons. For example, if a rental is paid to a trustee or a salary is paid to a trustee, all these transactions record are to be maintained. Then you have to maintain the date and amount of such transactions, nature of the transaction, and document to the effect that such transaction is directly or indirectly not for the benefit of such specific person. Otherwise, your income will be forfeited if it is for the benefit of specific person. Then there is requirement to maintain any other records or documents, basically a residuary clause. You need to maintain details of any other documents containing any other relevant information. So it says that you need to maintain the record of. So basically what does it implies? You need to maintain the record of as in invoices or just a record of information in the prescribed format.
Yes, record, I think primarily it is information. It is not necessary that you will, you already have evidences supporting vouchers, and in addition, you will collect more documents. I don't think that is the intention, but complete detailed information of various documents and information. For instance, payment made to interested person. The payment made to interested person has already been documented under the transaction. The voucher is there. In addition to it, these informations are to be given that what exactly, what proportion of the payment was in the nature of benefit, what proportion of the payment was at arm's length. So for those, for instance, the auditor may rely on some contract or some other study may be done by the auditor. For instance, if the rent is comparable with the market value, so the auditor may add some record pertaining to how he has arrived to a conclusion that the payment made to the interested person is reasonable and fair and it is not in the nature. So case to case basis, if there is a need for certain specific information to be added or specific document to be added, it should be added. Otherwise, it is maintaining of information details in systematic manner.
Sir, it says that you have to maintain the records regarding application, whether it is application out of income, application out of corpus, out of loans and borrowings. And it says that you have to maintain the name of a person, address of a person, amount paid. So this will be a very extensive record. So how to maintain that record in a prescribed format, and auditor has to certify it?
Well, not only that, it has become, because you have to maintain application based on each object. whether it is towards relief to poor, it is towards education, it is towards environment, so limb wise. And once you are maintaining the application or expenditure based on each limb, then the challenge comes that how you distribute the administrative expenses. But what we understand that you should cover the applications on the broader limbs or the dominant limb under which the expenditure will fall. And then maybe wherever required, there should be sub-records based on whatever thing is there, because you cannot reinvent the wheel and start doing so many things which are practically not possible. And at the end of the day, it is a form which has been added, and form is asking for information. A form cannot go beyond the act. Under the act, what are the information, what are the evidences required under the income tax purposes, and what are the evidences required under the Indian Evidence Act. There are so many case laws. So at the end of the day, that is what will have precedence over the form. So it is not that you have to start creating new informations, but your documents, but you have to organize the information in the light of the new form. And there is no straight jacket formula. Maybe, as I said, in another query, we will discuss about administrative expenses. Sureshji, would you like to add here this particular point?
No, we'll take up because in certain after slide we have to address again. Then I will add.
Yeah, so we'll take it later. Yeah.
So it says the record of movable and immovable properties are to be maintained. So immovable properties, understandable, it is land and building. So what all details will be covered in the movable properties?
Movable property, for that matter, immovable property in a charitable organization, we should be very careful, because in case of a charitable organization, both movable and immovable property can be treated as revenue expenditure applications during the year. So when we claim capital expenditure, normally we maintain the distinction. But when we claim movable property as a revenue expenditure, so then they don't find a place in the balance sheet. So for what is movable property, the simple answer is that whatever finds a place in the balance sheet and is not a immovable property, that will come under movable property. Apart from that, the organization should maintain the fixed asset register pertaining to all those assets, movable assets. It could be vehicles, it could be computers, it could be various other assets, even if they have been charged off, depending on the organization's accounting practice, either they are shown as at token value or through capitalization. So that is how the organization has to see. All immovable property has to be separately recorded and disclosed. It could be at token value also.
Yeah, the only point is here, if you are receiving as an in-kind contribution also and not appearing in your financial statement, then also in this register, those assets should appear.
And when you are receiving in-kind, contribution, there is a distinction, the in-kind contribution which is subject to application and which is subject to preservation. Suppose you receive an in-kind application which is in the nature of jewelry or a furniture, that is not subject to application, it may not be treated as income. But an in-kind donation such as blanket, which is subject to application, then it has to be valued and also treated as application. I think this also we will discuss and we can move now.
Sir, under other documents requirement, it says that you have to maintain the record of all the transactions with the person specified under section 13.3, basically a related party transactions. But section 13 poses restriction only to give the benefit to the related parties. So whether we need to maintain the record of all such transactions or only with respect to the benefit passed on?
I think all transactions has to be recorded, and if there is a case of benefit, because normally it is not expected that an organization will give benefit because it will result in various penal provisions, whether it is forfeiture or other provisions where directly it will be taxed. So therefore, I think all the transactions have to be reported. And in addition, the benefit has to be segregated.
And the additional requirement for the document requirement is that they have to also preserve all the documents and the logic on which they are thinking this is not the benefit. In the statement, they have clearly mentioning all the transactions again supported by why you are thinking it is not a benefit. So this documentation is very much required.
This, I think we should give 1 more minute to it because it creates a lot of obligation and responsibility on the head of the auditor. As I told some time ago, suppose a rent is paid to the trustee. So then why the rent is not in the nature of a benefit? Then some documents pertaining to the market rate of rent or what are the rent in the nearby. So that is how only an auditor can assess that it is not, or remuneration is paid to a beneficiary. Then the qualification, the experience and the comparable salary to that. Maybe those kind of documents also now are becoming relevant as seeing the form. Earlier, they were not necessary. Earlier, these were something which were under the domain of the assessing officer. Assessing officer during assessment may call for these kind of information. But now the department is expecting that this information should be readily available for the assessing officer to assess how the auditor has decided something as benefit or it is not a benefit. So it is a huge obligation. We don't understand how the auditor is going to manage and come up with all this kind of obligations and reporting to be done.
So I think indirectly they are making the transfer pricing provisions applicable to the NGOs to maintain the record of arm's length price. So every transaction should be at arm's length price with the related parties.
Yes. It looks like that only.
Sir, they have mentioned that records are to be maintained, the name of the person, address, PAN number, Aadhaar number, and there are multiple records. So whether maintaining the books of accounts and records in Tally or a similar accounting software will fulfill the requirements, or there has to be something in a computerized manner, or their registers are to be maintained like we do in the Companies Act for the companies?
No, Tally, one can maintain Tally, but maybe in times to come, you will have a NGO specific modified version of Tally, which takes care of all the requirement of the rules for maintenance of books of account. So that we have, but now currently either the Tally is customized or in addition to Tally, the organization may have to maintain Excel sheets and other records, because I don't think Tally is adequate to take care of all the requirement.
So you should have a customized ERP for NGO specific, or otherwise the accounting software will not fulfill all the detailed requirements.
No. So maybe, the organizations have to maintain maybe Excel sheets. Sureshji, in this context, I would request you to give some idea regarding organization falling under 10B and 10BB. So what are the benefits 10BB can enjoy regarding maintenance of account, the smaller organization? So bigger organization, more than 5 crore, we can understand they can afford an ERP and all those things. But the smaller may not be in a position.
Actually, Manoj, you were discussing Rule 17AA, and this applies to all the category of NGO. Only at the time of reporting obligation to the auditor, then he's reporting less or reporting more. But this maintenance of books of account applies all the NGOs.
So then it becomes a huge issue for all the and maybe Excel sheet would be an option in addition to Tally.
I know some of the NGOs has already requested Tally to update their reporting formats to include all these documents to come out from the Tally itself once you feed the data. So actually, we have to customize Tally. Otherwise, very, very difficult to maintain same record which are in the accounts again separately in the Excel. So we have to now review our accounting system and that software.
Yeah. You can move on.
So coming to next slide, what is the manner of keeping the books of accounts? In which manner these books of accounts have to be maintained? So Rule 17AA2 says that books of accounts can be maintained in a written form or electronic form or digital form, or as printouts of data stored in electronic form, digital form, or any other form of electronic magnetic data storage device. So it gives you the leeway to maintain the records in a written form or a electronic form or a digital form. But what exactly is the difference between the electronic and digital form is, so if you are maintaining the records in a digital form, it is basically like maintaining a physical copies and scanning those documents. That is basically digitalization of the records. And electronic means basically maintaining itself in a computer system, like we do in Excel sheets. That is just maintaining the records in an electronic form. If I say what is digital form, that is maintaining the records in a scanned copies, storing in a digital form. So that is basically a difference between the electronic form or a digital form. So you can choose any of these methods to keep and maintain your books of accounts and other documents records. And which place these books of accounts are to be maintained? So generally the books are to be maintained at a registered office. If you decide to maintain it at any other place, you have to intimate to the assessing officer within 7 days that we are maintaining that book at so and so address. You have to give the details of full address of such place where these books are to be kept. And the letter which is to be submitted to the assessing officer, it should be signed and verified by the authorized person who is authorized to sign the income tax return under section 140 of the income tax act. So what is the procedure to give intimation? Generally we see most of the NGOs are registered somewhere else. Their registered office address is at some place and the books are maintained at some other place. So what is the procedure to give the intimation to the assessing officer?
You have to write to the jurisdiction assessing officer on the portal. So that you can put a mail to the assessee which is available after login. So through which it has to be informed. I don't think a separate window has been created for informing. Maybe in future there might be a separate window where these records can be maintained, that the assessee has informed. That probably will come in times to come, but as of now I don't think there is a separate window has been created for it. So then maybe it should be formally informed to the jurisdiction AO. Surajji, is there any other way to do it?
No. Presently, only by way of a letter we are depositing, because there is no separate window in the portal itself. So through email or through physical copy of letters.
You can get the details of jurisdiction assessing officer by logging into your income tax profile and checking my profile section. There will be the ward details or the email ID of officer. You can send an email or submit a physical copy of the intimation.
Yeah, and there is no format prescribed. Just you have to fill up as per the requirement.
Yeah, just a simple letter on the letterhead, and that should be signed by an authorized person.
Who can sign the return?
Yes. Sir, there is requirement to give intimation within the 7 days. What if the intimation is not made within 7 days? Since that rule was made effective from the 10th of August 22, and that requirement to maintain the books of accounts is from that date, and many organizations would have missed the deadline of 7 days. What will be the consequences of missing that deadline?
Surajji?
In the law, there is no consequences as such is provided. We advise to submit now with all the details, because at the time of audit, the auditor has to now take note of it. So I think even if you have not provided the information to the assessing officer, we should provide it now.
And there is no specific provision for penalizing the organization as of now. Maybe the department is aware and there might be inadvertent mistakes. So therefore, as of now, we don't have any penal provisions.
Sir, another very important thing is many times we see that there are multiple projects being run by the NGOs, and the books of accounts are maintained at a centralized places, and the project related documentation is maintained at project office or some branch office somewhere else. So how this requirement will be fulfilled? So whether we need to intimate to the AO that we are maintaining some records at the project office and some records at the registered office, or that entire record at year end should be shifted to the RO?
No, the issue is that to comply a provision, whether the organization is legally required to change its storage mechanism, that we should not get into it. Assuming that a part of the records are at project office, a part of record are the headquarter, I think they have to be specifically, the auditor has to inform. And the problem with the issue is that once the records are at two places, whether those records can be verified, whether a sampling will be required, whether a physical visit will be required, those are other issues which will take up when the form and reporting will come. But I think this has to be reported to the AO in the letter regarding the location of the accounts, because the rule specifically provides different types of account, and we can code wise we can say that these are the accounts which are available at this location.
And the period for which these books of accounts are to be maintained. So law says that books of accounts should be kept for the 10 years from the end of the relevant assessment year. So basically accounts are to be maintained for the 10 years period. But if your assessment is open under section 147, the books of accounts and other documents which are maintained shall continue to be kept and maintained till the assessment so reopened has become final. So if your assessment proceedings have opened up after 10 years, then until that assessment becomes final, you have to keep and maintain all those records until the completion of that assessment. I think we have discussed about everything. This is just a summary of whatever we have discussed in detail. I think we should jump to the discussion about the audit report in form 10B and 10BB, because it is quite related to the books of accounts, and in a flow we can discuss it about it and we can take all the queries towards the end of the session.
Before we go to the third tranche of our discussion, I think there are some basic issues which may be required to be answered regarding books of accounts. Suppose a very small charitable trust is there, he is having only rental income of 3 lakhs rupees, and after giving the deduction of 30%, standard deduction, his income is coming to 2,10,000. Whether he will be required to maintain books of accounts or not, because the requirement is that without applying section 11(12), but total income. A total income is defined as computed under the income tax act, giving the deductions, etc., under the various sections or various heads of income. So, Fogla sir, please.
No. Though there are 1 or 2 tribunal cases where even for 12A registered organization, it is said that this 30% deduction could be permitted. But if you see the larger cases, 5 heads will not apply. And if 5 heads are not applying, whatever is available to the organization, with the real deduction, what to my understanding is that the amount of expenditure, actual expenditure is maintaining the building, is an above the line item, and after deducting the actual expenditure is the amount available for application. So if that way, if it comes below the taxable limit, then it will work. But I don't think 30% is the correct legal way of addressing it. Suresh ji, aapka kya understanding?
I also hold the same view. If the commercial we compute income and without giving the application benefit, if the amount is more than 2.5 lakhs, even we are not allowed to get the statutory accommodation 15% benefit, because some of the queries has asked if we get 15% and then becomes less than 2.5 lakh. So you're basically the gross commercial income computed in commercial sense without any application or without any statutory accommodation benefit. If it exceeds 2.50 lakhs, you are subject to books of account, you are subject to audit.
So here, actually, the requirement of audit and books of accounts is there, but they are saying total income. The word used is not total receipts, total income without applying provision section 11(12). So I think there may be a case where the institute has also said in the guidance note that the dividend, when it was not taxable, it was exempted, it will not be included. So I think in that line, whether the deductions can be claimed or not, there may be some disputes. Okay, anyway, when the letter speaker has said that it would be taken as not to be allowable standard deduction, let us take in that way. Second question is about the form and manner. It has been prescribed by section 12A 1B, but not the time. They have not said that the prescription of time for maintaining or keeping the books of accounts. So whether form and manner includes the prescribing time also 10 years. I think that is not whether the rule making authority is not exceeding its limit, its delegation.
Surajji?
Actually, in the NGO practice, whatever we can have a number of litigated point on the argument, but in the NGO sector, we play very safe. We don't want to go to litigation. And if the rules provides for 10 years, we have to preserve for 10 years. Yes, you have a right to a full case. If the Act doesn't provide this mandate, how the rule can define the form of the period of it is to be preserved. But the NGO sector, we know nobody is going for litigation.
We on practical side, practical view, it should be maintained for 10 years. Okay.
10 years, yeah. Because we are practicing for NGO sector. We're not practicing for a profit sector.
Okay.
So I have one doubt. Now, with regards to certain religious organizations like churches or temples, now they get anonymous contribution in terms of the smaller amount. Now, how is that to be? How do we deal with those numbers? Like people come, they just put money in only, and they make a very small cash contribution, as and when they come to the church or the temple. So, how is that to be treated?
No. One, you have to see that your organization is registered as a charitable cum religious organization. So once, even if there are organizations which claim even 2%, 3% religious activity, don't take 80G certificate, and such organizations, once you receive anonymous donation, there is a CBDT circular which says that religious organization and charitable cum religious organization, irrespective of the percentage or proportion of religious activity can be 20%, can be even less than 5%. All those organizations are entitled to receive anonymous donation. For anonymous donation, if the trust, a church or a temple is having donation boxes, they may develop some kind of a mechanism and a committee in the presence of which the donation boxes are opened and the amount is deposited in the bank in a systematic manner. That is all you have to maintain. You are not required to give any other detail, and they should be treated as a part of your voluntary contribution.
Sir, what is the circular number?
Circular we will share.
We'll provide.
It is there in our book. I can motivate
We will
you.
provide.
Our book. Otherwise, we will share. We can share it with Nitesh ji. He can circulate. We can give the circular itself.
Sir, I have one question.
Donations received by non-religious NGOs, like an educational institution, but the donor wants to remain anonymous or doesn't want to disclose who or she.
This is restricted to maintenance of books of account. Otherwise,
Yes.
The issue is pertaining to books of account. In the plenary, we can take up other issues.
Sir, I have one question. Please reply.
Of a temple where anonymous donations are there. So in the when we get these donations, so can we say that, can we keep a separate box for corpus donation, for a building donation? Can we keep a separate box? Because this issue comes at the time of accumulation, at the time of 85% accumulation. So
There are some case laws where it has been held that that of course was in case of a large temple where there were many hundis and donation boxes, and one or two donation boxes were specifically earmarked that this money will be towards corpus, and the court held that it will be treated as a corpus donation even without a letter from the donor, even without the identity of the donor. But the case had typical facts and circumstances. In general, our recommendation would be that don't treat anonymous donation as corpus donation. But you can go through that case. If it suits you, then you can take a call.
So can you please quote that case? Even if a name will do.
No. That right now I don't remember, but it should be there in our book, and you can share this with Nitesh ji or the organizer. We will answer all these questions. Our email ID etc. are also there with you, so we cannot run away. You try, we will give it. Right now it is not available.
Sir, my question, please.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, only one question, please. Hello.
Last question, please.
Sir, I have a very big doubt on the issue of donations. In Form 10BD, they say that every type of donation has to be given in that Form 10BD, cash received in kind in bank. And name and address. What is the meaning of name, address, and complete address? उसमें बताया Form 10BD में complete address चाहिए. But Rule 17AA कहता है name and address चाहिए, PAN और आधार if available. और अदर कोई भी आइडेंटिटी प्रूफ नहीं मांगा गया. बट फॉर्म 10BD सेज आधार, पैन, वोटर कार्ड, आई कार्ड ये चाहिए. एंड बट इज 115 BC says name, address or any other requirement is to be maintained to avoid the anonymous donation. तो सर ये सारा डिफरेंट सिनारियो डिफरेंट तरीके से बताया गया है. अगर फॉर्म 10BD में आइडेंटिटी प्रूफ नहीं है तो क्या वो अनोनिमस डोनेशन माना जाएगा? और क्या फॉर्म 10BD में every type of donation has to be reported?
Now, quickly, because there are so many, as far as section 115 BBC is concerned, anonymous donation. Because
Yes,
when we're
sir.
10BD, we are talking about section 80G.
Yes.
And we are talking anonymous 115 BBC. So let us divide it. So otherwise it will create confusion. 115 BBC, it is very certain that to claim a donation that it is not anonymous, you only need name and address. And
Okay.
such other particulars as may be prescribed, it is written, and they were never prescribed.
Yes.
So because no particulars have been prescribed, so therefore you cannot say that the donation is anonymous only because the PAN card is not available. But 10BD, the 80G benefit may not be available to the donor because the 10BD in any case is related to PAN card. Because without PAN card, the donor can get benefit. It comes into the category of non-anonymous donation. So 10BD is a totally different requirement. So that is why any kind of identity of the donor is expected. That is a procedural requirement which you have to meet. Suraj ji, क्या आप add करेंगे इसमें?
Yeah, I am dealing in very detail in my 10B presentation because they have asked the auditor to reconcile.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Thank you, sir.
Let us now move to the last branch of our discussion.
I have got one question.
Most crucial.
On books of accounts, I have got some questions on
audit
books
forms
of
10. That will be taken up in the last half an hour, where we will be interacting again on all the issues. Last half an hour, please. Otherwise, the most important part of our discussion would remain. Many persons are interested in the revised format of audit report. Please.
So we are into a very, very important discussion now. And the content of my presentation is first the requirement of audit. I will not give much of time here because we all know. Then audit as a condition for registration. Again, we will not give much of time here because we will focus on the 10B and 10B.
Income tax fee,
Again, the implication of not obtaining or not furnishing the audit report. And fourth is the new audit report format after 1/4/23. And this is change in the form of audit report, change in the format of audit report, and comprehensive change in the annexure forming part of report. As because the time is short, I will start from clause D, new audit report format, because I don't want to repeat the requirement of audit and audit as a condition and implication of not obtaining and furnishing the audit report. Now the new audit form with effect from 1/4/23. The CBD notified new audit for report form 10B and 10BB from 1/4/23. The rule 16C and 17B of the income tax rules have been substituted with effect from 1/4/23 by the income tax amendment, third amendment rules 23. CBD notified new audit report form 10B and 10BB to be furnished by the charitable or religious trust and other institutions. The amended rules are effective from 1/4/23 and they prescribe change in the form in which audit report is to be given. They prescribe the change in the format of audit report, and they have also, there is a comprehensive change in the annexure forming part of audit report. So basically,
PPT is still, it is not moving.
Hello?
PPT is still, sir.
Not moving?
Yes. So please do enable editing करके एक बार उसको slideshow mode में डालिए, वो first screen पे रखो.
ओके ओके, मैं अगेन इसको जा रहा हूँ मैं। अच्छा अच्छा, अनेबल वोटिंग में हुआ ना। ये आ रहा है क्या?
अभी स्क्रीन शो नहीं हुआ, दोबारा शेयर स्क्रीन।
स्क्रीन में गया, स्क्रीन में नहीं आ रहा है क्या? ये मुझे लॉगिन करके फिर करना पड़ेगा लगता है। मैं आउट होके फिर इन हो रहा हूँ एक्चुअली।
Let Tarun upload.
नो नो नो,
While Suresh ji is joining, we can take that question.
Sir, there's one question regarding 13.3 specified persons. So in 13.3 they refer. So in 13.3 they refer that we have to maintain all the records of the trustees, donors, and specified persons. So specified so donors, where if I give 50,000 and above donation, so should my details also be provided in 13.3 or not?
Technically, yes, because donor, which requires a change, it is a very old provision, more than 50,000. So normally people avoid this. They don't treat donor as a specified person. Many organizations, they don't treat it as a specified person, but technically more than 50,000
వాళ్ళకు కూడా ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ చూపించుకోవాలి కాబట్టి 22-23 లో వేస్తారు. అది ఇంకా ఒక నెల అవుతుంది, 15 రోజులు అవుతుంది తెలుస్తుంది.
So one question regarding the earlier circular we have discussed. I want to know if some organization has received 12A registration on renewal after 31st May 2021. If in May 2021 an earlier organization which was registered under 12A got renewed with provisional registration having 5 years span, what should it do right now?
This we have addressed earlier. If it was registered prior to 31st March, you can surrender the provisional and apply for 5-year registration.
Sir, already registered under 12A before 31st March 2021, and after that we renewed and we got the provisional registration, but the time span it has mentioned 5 years period from 22-23 to 26-27.
So then by mistake only provisional is registered. There is a CBDT circular which says that you can ignore the word provisional. You can treat it your certificate.
Oh, okay. So one again query regarding ATG registration. If we are a existing organization, but we have applied first time registration for ATG. So we got provisional registration. So are we required to regularize that also?
Yes.
पठारी जी, मुझे राइट देना पड़ेगा होस्ट करने का।
ये आपका आ नहीं रहा है
राइट नहीं आ रहा होस्ट का।
पल्लवी जी
हाँ जी सर,
मुझे होस्ट बनाइए।
जी बोल रहे हैं, सुरेश जी कुछ बोल रहे हैं।
हाँ सर।
हेलो,
मैं एग्जिट करके इन हुआ हूँ ना।
हेलो
हेलो,
हाँ मुझे राइट दीजिए।
नहीं मिल रहा है शायद।
लिंक मिल गया, राइट नहीं मिल रहा होस्ट करने के लिए। पीपीटी में नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ।
होस्ट बनाना पड़ेगा।
हाँ होस्ट बनाना पड़ेगा।
हेलो
सर, कर दिए सर।
हेलो
So just one question. With respect to a record of specified persons, should we maintain the record of specified persons irrespective of whether any transaction has been entered by the trust with them?
The specified.
Tarun ji, mein aa raha hai kya abhi?
Maybe, I think maybe at the end we will take on. Let Suresh continue.
Tarun ji, mein aa raha hai kya PPT abhi theek se?
हाँ, आ गया।
आ रहा है सर, आ रहा है सुरेश जी।
Okay, okay, ठीक है, thank you. So basically, we are discussing that after the amended Rule 16cc and Rule 17b, there is a change in the form in which audit report is to be given. There is change in the format of audit report, and there is change in the annexure also. Now, change in the form. The pre-amended position was there were two forms. 10b was applicable for 12AB registered organization, and 10BB was registered for applicable for 1023C approved entities. Now, after the amendment, there is no separate form for 12AB and 1023C. They are subject to the same form. The common forms are now being used, but the name of the form remains same, 10B and 10BB. And 10B is basically for a bigger size specified category of NGO, and 10BB is for the other NGOs which are not covered under 10B. So now let us discuss who is covered under 10B and who is covered under 10BB. So who is required to file form number 10B and who is required to file 10BB? The 10BB is required to file by those NGOs if the total income of the trust or institution without giving effect of provision of section 11 and 12 or section 1023C exceeds rupees 5 crore during the previous year. So that means first condition is your total income without giving benefit of section 11 and 12 exceeds rupees 5 crore. Or if the such trust or institutions has received any foreign contribution during the previous year. So even if your receipt is less than 5 crore, maybe 10 lakhs, but you have received 10,000 foreign contribution, then you shall be subject to 10B. And third condition is if the trust or institution has applied any part of its income outside India, then also even if the total receipts of this trust is very small, but because the trust has spent outside India, the form 10B has to be filled. In all other cases, 10BB has to be, the cases which is not covered in 10B, form 10BB has to be used. Now the issue is, Manoj ji, which form shall be used if the foreign contribution received is only by way of bank interest?
I think because technically even interest is a deemed foreign contribution. So form 10B should be used even for a small NGO.
And if no foreign contribution is received?
No foreign contribution is received, then I don't think form 10B is required.
Then 10B is required only the amount exceeds 5 crore. Otherwise, we can go for 10BB.
Yes, yes.
Now, which audit form should be used if the institution has made expenditure in foreign currency or income applied is outside India?
Here, sometimes you import an article, then some money has went outside India, but it is to be used in India. So basically, the idea is that if section 11(1)(c) is applicable, whether approved or not approved, in that case, this form will apply, form 10B. If 11(1)(c) is not applicable, then form 10B will not apply, 10BB will do for small organization.
Yeah, and then we have to verify whether the foreign contribution is there or 5 crore.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Now, so we have discussed where to use form 10B and where to use 10BB. Now, the second important amendment is the content of audit report. So what is those amendments? So I've divided in three categories. Basis of difference. Earlier, what are the financial statements we have to examine? The pre-amended position was balance sheet and profit and loss account. But at the amended the position is we have to verify balance sheet and income expenditure account or profit and loss account. That means we have to choose from income expenditure account or profit and loss account. I understand in the context of the NGO sector, income expenditure account is more relevant and not the profit and loss account. Now, second is information on place of maintaining books of account. The pre-amended position was the auditor has to report whether proper books of account have been maintained by both the head office and the branches. But the amended position says that in my or our opinion, proper books of account have been maintained at the registered office or at the addresses mentioned at row 11 and 14 of the annexure. That means all the we are talking in the books of account, we are discussing the place of where the books of account are being kept, and we have to intimate to the assessing officer. And those things has to be documented in form number 10B in row 11 and row 14 So the auditor has to maintain that the proper accounts have been maintained at the register office and all other such places at which the books of account have been maintained. Third is very, very important, opinion by the auditor on the financial statement. Earlier, the auditor was to give whether the profit and loss account represent the profit or loss of the accounting year ending on such and such date. But now, in the case of an income expenditure account, or in the case of a profit and loss account, the auditor has to say income and application of its accounting year. They are not saying income and expenditure of the accounting year. And we all know application has a different meaning under Income Tax Act. So now, if we are using that financial statement as income and expenditure account, then the auditor has to certify not the expenditure. He has to verify the application from the income and expenditure account. And fourthly is most important, the pre-amended position, the annexure forming part of 10B was not required to be separately given any opinion by the auditor. Just they were one part of the audit report, but auditor has not to express any opinion on that. But the amended audit report format mentions that the now annexure, the auditor has to certify it as true and correct. The financial statement he has to see the true and fair, but the annexures, the auditor has to say true and correct. The pre-amended position, the auditor was not giving any opinion, even for true and fair, they are not giving any opinion on the annexure. But after this amended position, the auditor has to give the annexure true and correct. So these are broadly the changes in the audit report formats. Now, Manojji, how the auditor shall certify himself that the books of account have been maintained at the address mentioned in form number 10B or a different location?
No, different location. One, the auditor can take the declaration of the management, but more importantly, the auditor has to form an opinion and certify the content of these records. So that is where the problem arises, that whether the records, can he certify the records without having a look at it or even doing a sampling. So there maybe the institute's guidelines would apply, to what extent. So following the institute guidelines, if it is required to have a look at it, then maybe a physical visit will become compulsory. So that is the issue. He can always take the statement of the management regarding the location of the books of accounts.
Now the financial statement is named as income and expenditure account, but the auditor has to require to report true and fair view of the income and application. So whether it is possible to report application from a normal income and expenditure account?
Our understanding is that this is a special purpose audit report, and this special purpose audit report, this income and application account has to be prepared, because earlier also the word profit and loss were used, but the income and expenditure, whatever could be treated as income under section 11 and whatever could be treated as application under section 11, that should be the content of a income and expenditure account, which will for all practical purposes will become a modified receipt and payment account in the light of the provisions we have already discussed. I think that is the correct way. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to handle Form 10B, 10BB and filing of ITR 7. So the practice of preparing the income and expenditure account in the traditional manner, then preparing an additional computation sheet, reconciliation, has to be discontinued, and an income and application account should be prepared. That is what is coming out of these forms, regulations, and the Act. At the end of the Act, the Income Tax Act, Section 11, Income and Section 11. Interestingly, the word expenditure has not been used anywhere in the Section 11. So it is all expenditure, including expenditure is an above the line item for Section 11. So after charging all expenditure, we make application. So for all practical purposes, income and application account has to be prepared. A certain expenditure, even now, such as fundraising expenditure, etc., are above the line item, so that for correct determination of 85%, they have to be deducted from the gross income. So income and application, that is what we should complete. You can add, Suresh.
Yeah, you are right, Anuj, because application also includes repayment of loan. Application also
Yes.
includes replenishment of corpus fund. So it is these informations are not available in income expense account, and the auditor has to supply the amount of application from the income expense account. I think it has to come out on this and has to give a complete guideline or represent with the stability how to make correction in the format of certification of the application amount from the income expense account. And Manoj, what is the major changes in the auditor's obligation for certifying form number 10B and BB? Because earlier he was not required to attach to any obligation.
We have already discussed, because now the assessing officer is responsible for all the additions which the AO may make. If the AO makes an addition under section 1310 or 115 BBI, AO says that you have made investment in violation or you have made given benefit to specified person, that means the auditor failed to detect those information. So now auditor is taking responsibility of the correctness of the audit report with regard to the all applicable condition under section, because we should understand that section 12A, section 11, 12 and 13 are conditions. Primarily, these are conditions to avail exemption. You have to apply 85%, that is a condition. You cannot apply outside the country, that is a condition. You have to make specified investment, that is a condition. So basically, the exemption related computation is based only on conditions. It is conditional. It is not of the prerogative like commercial organization. So all the conditions are correctly fulfilled. Most of them has been incorporated. In the chart which you have prepared, we can share that which are left out and which are for 10B and 10BB, which can be taken print out by the auditor, but there is a major shift in the obligations of the auditor.
You're right, Manoj. So we have dealt with which form to be used. We have also discussed what is the content of the audit report. Now, very, very crucial part, the amendment in the annexure, forming part of the audit report, and which the auditor has to certify true and correct, not has to only express an opinion. So what this form looks like? So if you see, then the form 10B has 49 clauses, but the form 10BB has only 32 clauses. If we see the section, 10B has a 22 section and form 10BB has 9 section. Then we have to see the schedules. 10B has 26 schedules, 49 clauses and 26 schedules we have to make and certify. And 10BB has 6 schedules. And again, we have to read the notes attached with 10B and attached with 10BB. And notes are 12 notes. So basically, and in 10BB, there are 6 notes. So when you are going to submit 10B, you have to see 49 clauses, 22 sections, 26 schedules, and you have to read 12 notes. And again, 10BB, 32 clauses, 9 sections, 6 and 6. So whatever there is in 10BB is also there in 10B. So I will discuss broadly 10B, that will also cover 10BB. So just I'm giving a bird eye view, the overview of 10B. From my understanding, I have bifurcated the total 49 clauses in different categories. One is general information, which covers 14 clauses. The second category is GPU and business, that covers 4 clauses. Then computation of income, most important, it covers 15 clauses. Then income without subject to application, it covers 3 clauses. Then penal provisions, it covers 5 clauses. And other compliances, it covers 8 clauses. So if we summarize these 49 clauses, then we find 14 clauses are for general information, 4 clauses for GPU and business, 15 clauses for a completion of income. And again, there are income which is not subject to application, 3 clauses, and other penal provisions 5 and other compliances 6. When we talk about general information, they talk about basic details, legal status, registration details, management, object clause, commencement of activity, and details or place where books of account have been maintained. All this comes under the general information category, and this constitutes 14 clauses out of the 49 clauses. GPU and business, we have to mention whether your object or your activity constitutes advancement of general public utility. They have a format, we have to report there. Then we have to give the information on business undertaking. If we have 11.4 businesses, we have to give separately here. If we have 11.4A business, we have to separately give in clause 18. So these 4 clauses are to know to the assessing officer whether we are in GPU or whether we are engaged in 11.4 or 11.4A. Computation of income is again very, very vital. What they have done, they have given voluntary contribution from clause 21 to 27. They have covered the voluntary contribution. Then income to be applied. Then income, application of income. Then taxable income. Then capital asset under section 11.1A. Then application out of different source other than income. And then payment or credit in excess of 50 lakhs. Whenever you make any payment or any expenditure application, if to any particular person we are making more than 50 lakhs, for that separate schedule we have to give. So this is for computation of income, application of income, and the total income. Now there are number of incomes which is directly taxed, which is not subject to application. And for that, we have to give details of 115 BBI income. We have to give details of anonymous donations. We have to give details of income not subject to application, and that is covered under 164(2). Then there are parallel provisions 1310, 1311. We have to mention, the auditor has to give a report on that. Then the person referred in section 13.3 and details of transactions with them. And then specified violation for 12AB4. That is 12AB4 constitutes 8 and 9 violation situations where the registration can be cancelled. Now the auditor has also to certify whether any of the violations is committed by the organization or not. And other compliances includes the TDS on receipts, expenditure incurred on release purposes, the claim of depreciation, claim of deduction under section 10, loan taken or accepted, received as an amount in excess of 2,269 ST, loan repaid exceeding 20,269 T, and TDS compliances. So basically, all these information we have to give in 10B form. And what we have to give in 10BB, the slides I marked in red, that is not covered in 10BB. So whatever slides, whatever the blocks I marked in red, that is not covered in 10BB. And what I marked in the blue, it is different form in 10BB. So basically, 10B covers more detailed information than 10BB, but this is a summary of what the form 10B lies and what the 10BB lies. And meaning thereby, as an auditor, we have to know each and every provision concerning trust. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for an auditor to certify 115 BBI income, to certify anonymous donation, to certify other income directly charged under 164(2). Okay, so this table gives an overview of what we can input under this. I had a detailed presentation on some of the important aspects, but I think Kothari's time is, I think, running out.
Yes. Actually, we have 10 minutes only scheduled time.
So what we should
Nitesh, Pallavi, whether you can extend the session or
Sir, we can extend 5-10 minutes, but not more than that.
For 15 minutes.
So I think I can cover only the how to compute income, that part, because that is most important for us.
Okay.
So that will give us an idea how to compute income, what the requirement of the 10B. So for voluntary contribution, what they have said, they are first 21 clause. We have to mention whether OIT has filed form 10BD. That means statement of donation. We have to say yes or no. Then total sum of donation reported in 10BD. So suppose total we have received 2 lakh of rupees as a donation, and 10BD we could report only 1 lakh. So in 22 column it will come only 1 lakh. Then they are saying donation not reported in 10BD. So because you don't have a details of the PAN number, Aadhaar number, so you are not in a position to deposit, to submit it in 10BD. So first 22 is what you have reported in 10BD, and 23 is what you have not reported in 10BD. And now this has to be, what you have not reported has to be analyzed in 8 different regions. One is you have not submitted 10BD because you are at ATG 2B organization. You have not submitted 10BD because you have exceeding donation exceeding 2,000. You have not received, you have not reported 10BD because the identification of the donor not available with you, like PAN number and Aadhaar number. You have not reported because donation received in kind. You have not reported because it was a taxable, it was an anonymous donation. You don't have details or any other reason. And then the total amount of donation not reported. So that means now you have to reconcile, the auditor has to reconcile the total donation received in the organization books of account, what is reported and what is not reported, and what is not reported in different 8 categories. Now, what is voluntary contribution received by the auditor during the year is 22 plus 23.8. That total sum, whether it is in kind, it becomes a voluntary contribution. So, so whether you report or not, it becomes form part of voluntary contribution. And by this 10B, they have also included donation received in kind, also a part of voluntary contribution. And for a disclosure purpose, they wanted to have an information total foreign contribution out of total voluntary contribution. And they also want to know the exempt amount of corpus donation, because corpus donation is also included in 22 and 23. And then their final calculation is voluntary contribution required to be applied by the auditor during the previous year is VC24, means whatever donation you have received, not reported or reported, minus a taxable portion of anonymous donation and minus exempt portion of corpus donation. And that becomes your voluntary contribution subject to application. And now the second part is we have to compute income subject to application. So voluntary contribution we have computed from the last slide. Then 28, they are saying income other than voluntary contribution without any bifurcation. And then income applied outside India, which is eligible for 11(1)(c). And they are saying total income subject to application will be 27 plus 28 minus income subject to outside India. That means voluntary contribution to be applied plus other voluntary contributions, other income other than voluntary contribution. Now, income other than voluntary contribution has no detailed schedule. Hence, it should include all other income, including income from trust property, business income, incidental income. All these will come under income from, in column number 28, income other than voluntary contribution. And we have a AI schedule in ITR 7. I think from ITR 7 AI schedule, we have to take a reference and we have to give total income from income other than voluntary contribution. And again, application, they want total application on a payment basis, whether an amount invested, deposit back to the corpus fund, repayment of loan and borrowings. They are asking, and then they are asking for amount to be disallowed from the applications. And they have given again cash payment exceeding 10,000, disallowances due to tedious provisions, intercharity donation towards corpus, intercharity donation not having similar objects, donation to any other person which is not registered organization, not approved institutions, application outside India, applying for any purpose beyond the object. So again, the auditor has to, they have to disallow out of the application, and then they have to calculate the amount allowable under the allowed as an application amount. And the application is also to be bifurcated between purpose-wise application. As we know, 215 has a different limb. So auditor has to certify which amount falls under which purpose. Application which cannot be specifically categorized under purpose-wise allocation. Details of application in excess of 50 lakh to a person. Application to be bifurcated between revenue and capital. So all these are in relation to computation of income, application, and disclosure of application. So I think, Kothari, we can conclude here.
Okay. Let us now take one or two questions myself, then we will call for the floor discussion. Suppose, please, just a minute, please wait. In the form 10B, the word used for application is whether it is given to some another trustor having same objects. What is the true importance of the word same objects? It is different from similar objects. So what is the true importance of same? Should it be exactly same? Ogla sir.
Then our understanding is that the objects related these issues in the past also it has been taken up. For that matter, in one case, this matter was debated in Supreme Court. that an organization doing some objects, not only similar, some objects which are conducive to the objects which is written, they should also be treated as a part of the object which has been stated, because object is a self-imposed restriction by the organization, because the organization chooses to restrict its objects in a particular manner. So my understanding is that an organization with similar, though this word same has been used in the form, but the act doesn't give enough mandate to the assessing officer to make any addition on the light of the the difference between the word same and similar. So one has to ensure that the organization, particularly in case of education, obviously education, we have a definition of education in the country. Lok Shikshan Niketan say that it should be formal education. So education is one area we have clarity. All other limb we don't have any specific clarity. So, but they should be in that limb of activity. Second, we should also be mindful that 12A registration normally is not based on specific limbs. The specific limbs we identify from the memorandum of the organization. So if the memorandum of the organizations, if the clauses are similar, I don't see any reason that it has to be separately reported only because the word same has been used.
Only one point I want to add here. When we give the inter-charity donation to another trust, it should not be voluntary contribution. If we give the voluntary contribution and those organizations may have a different objects than your object. So if we give the inter-charity donation, it has to be for a purpose so that your object clause doesn't clash.
Just to clarify what Sureshji is saying, what happens, two organizations may have, say, some clauses which are common. Then the donor organization should restrict its donation to the common clause and should not allow the organization to work, spend the money on other clauses.
It should be very specific.
Yeah, specific
contribution, very specific contribution. So now the question another question is that adequate consideration as the onus has been shifted to the auditor. Adequate consideration, reasonable consideration, etc. So therefore, how to determine whether the security is adequate, where the loan has been given, whether the interest is adequate, because the interest rate may vary from person to person. It is a very subjective reporting. I think what is the practical solution of these problems?
The practical solution is to go through the various judicial precedences on various kinds of payments made over the years. And consistently, the courts have said that reasonableness is no business, making a subjective analysis. There are cases where Delhi High Court, where the assessing officer in one case made payment made to the article students, the articles at an hourly rate of few thousand rupees per day, and the AO said that it was too unreasonable in another context. So the court said that reasonableness is something is not an window created for the AO to pass judgments. And recently, 2-3 Supreme Court cases have come, particularly in cases of payment to interested person, remuneration, salary, rent, where very high amount of rents, etc., have been treated. So the onus is rather reverse. If there is an evidence of arbitrariness, for instance, the rent is there and there are available circle rates, etc., comparable rates, and it is inordinately high. Otherwise, I think these are provisions which create, but the auditor has to go by the explanations and the declarations given by the management. It is not that the auditor has to create these documents. The auditor has to ask, just like the assessing officer asks the organization to provide how the salary is reasonable, and we provide, the auditor has to collect those documents. The organization has to prepare the credentials of the employees who are being paid the salary and a justification note, the rent, etc. And the auditor has to see that by and large it is reasonable. because I don't think the auditor is expected to do witch hunting and to do an real-time assessment. That is not the job of the auditor.
Just to add what
Thank you,
Manoj
sir.
said, the civility, the first issue is how to identify who are the related party. There can be a new number of related parties. So civility has given a circular, a declaration from the management we should take, and we should restrict to that declaration only. That means we are not in a process to identify who can be the related party. Otherwise, it will be a huge job. Secondly, the documentation part, when the Tarunji was discussing, the requirement of the document part is to establish through logical conclusion or through the document that these are not in benefit. So I think based upon the document preserved as a part of other document on why that payment is not a considered benefit, that should be relied upon by the auditor.
Now the floor, questions from floor. Please.
So I just have one question, sir. If you see Rule 17AA, it says a record of a specified person as per Section 13, subsection 3. So does that mean that even if there are no transactions under, if there are no transactions with the specified persons, even then we have to give the record of, there should be a record of all the specified persons?
No, Suresh, you can say. Yeah,
that document has two parts of information. One is who are your specified person, and second is transactions with them. So who are your specified person, that details has to be given. Transaction would be nil, as per my understanding, because there are two parts of information.
And this can be taken as the declaration of the organization. Yeah. So auditor is not, he can rely on the information provided by the organization.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. My query, my query is on the books of account. It was explained that we have to maintain other documents which include record for project and institutions, and under is record of income of the person during the previous year, like voluntary contribution income from property held or income from. So my question is that whether it is to be kept in respect of each project separately, or it is as a whole of the organization.
These records it will be organization as a whole, and the organization has to divide the projects on which the organization is working. So if the organization is working on several projects, and the projects and sub projects, what you are saying is that sub projects, whatever could become consolidated, one way could be that organization can consolidate the project limb wise. So under each limb, what are the projects and sub projects? And because that is the challenge we are facing with this Form 10BB, that the project wise expenditure application has to be reported. We have to know each charity limb wise segregation. Then you have location wise, that you have various project offices where the records are maintained, and once the record is maintained at a distant location, then the information pertaining to those records has to be separately prepared and they have to be consolidated. So that is the organization has to take a call that what is practically possible to segregate. Sureshji, you want to add something?
Yeah, I am the same, because out of the 10 documents and the 8 books of account. Okay. Now, if the documents is to come out from the accounting system, then it has to be at the place where the accounting systems are being maintained. But the organization, if they want to make it central way, any of the document, they can have a central record. But practically, it will depend upon their accounting system, how the data are stored, how the data are processed. Based upon that, they have to take a call.
The books of related, I have additional query. It happens in case of small entities.
Yeah. मेरा 3-4 छोटा क्वेश्चन है बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स के ऊपर में.
Sir, ABD, I have a question.
Can I speak?
Yes, definitely.
एक तो ये जैसे रिकॉर्ड्स मेंटेन की बात जब हो रही है, उसमें एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एक्सपेंसेस की भी रिकॉर्ड्स मेंटेन करनी है क्या? जैसे रेंट है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी है, सैलरी है, इनका क्या सेपरेटली एक्सेल शीट मेंटेन करना पड़ेगा?
आप वहाँ एप्लीकेशन की बात हो रही है एक साथ में, रिकॉर्ड में, डॉक्यूमेंट में।
हाँ, तो एप्लीकेशन तो सारा चीज में ही आ जाता है।
हाँ, तो वहां पर एप्लीकेशन में नहीं बोल रहे हैं, वहां पर पर्सन इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट, किसको पेमेंट करना है।
हाँ, तो
इनके डॉक्यूमेंट के फॉर्मेट में आप जाएंगे ना, तो डॉक्यूमेंट के फॉर्मेट का इनका जो डिजाइन किया हुआ है उसमें नेचर ऑफ एक्सपेंस नहीं आ रहे हैं, उसमें देयर इज मोर फोकस ऑन टू हुम यू आर पेइंग।
मतलब इंडिविजुअल नेचुरल पर्सन की बात हो रही है कि कोई किसी को भी, जैसे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी अगर हम इंडिविजुअल को दे रहे हैं तो नोट आएगा, और सीईएससी को दे रहे हैं तो नोट आएगा।
माने उनका फॉर्मेट डिजाइन है किया हुआ उनके फॉर्मेट में कि क्या क्या मांग रहे हैं, नेम ऑफ द पर्सन से स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं, वो एप्लीकेशन किसको पेमेंट कर रहे हैं वो।
सेकेंडली
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन,
कॉर्पस फंड का सेपरेटली अकाउंटिंग करना पड़ेगा, बैलेंस शीट में अलग से दिखाना है उसको, लायबिलिटी साइड में
नहीं पड़ेगा, तो इनकम में से बैलेंस शीट नहीं बनेगी।
क्वेश्चन सर वो 10B।
और ये 15% जो ये एक्युमुलेशन हो रहा है उसको भी क्या अलग से फंड दिखाना पड़ेगा बैलेंस शीट में?
अलग करना बेटर रहेगा, नहीं तो कॉर्पस से आप खर्चा करेंगे ना उसको मॉनिटर नहीं कर पाएंगे, उसको रिप्लेस करने के लिए।
15% अलग दिखा दिए और कॉर्पस अलग दिखा दिए, तो फिर ट्रस्ट फंड में क्या बचा?
वही 15% वाला ही है, ट्रस्ट फंड और क्या है,
वो ट्रस्ट फंड में 15% हो गया ना। और ये 10 साल का जो रिकॉर्ड मेंटेन करना है, तो इस साल का जो ऑडिट, जिस साल का ऑडिट होगा उसी साल का मेंटेन करना है कि जो एक साल स्टार्ट हो गया तो हर एक साल का ही करना है? सपोज करिए नेक्स्ट ईयर हमारा ऑडिट नहीं होगा, तो नेक्स्ट ईयर के रिकॉर्ड्स भी 10 साल मेंटेन करने हैं कि
10 साल तो बुक्स अकाउंट से रिलेटेड है, ऑडिट से रिलेटेड नहीं है। तो बुक्स अकाउंट तो सब एनजीओ को लग रहा है ना, तो वहां तो आपको 10 साल तक प्रिजर्व करने पड़ेंगे अकाउंट्स, यदि आपका 12 का रजिस्ट्रेशन है तो।
अच्छा, बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स
the organization is not having ATG registration approval, ATG approval, but they are needed to file 10BD form, and if they receive a foreign contribution, whether they have to mention anything here?
Manoj ji?
An organization,
if you don't have ATG registration, it will not be required. So, because the query is that in case of foreign contribution, whether Form 10BD has to be uploaded without ATG.
Manoj ji, I got one question.
Yes.
if I have an ATG and then I give the foreign contribution, whether I should report in 10BD?
No,
Where is
Suresh
the
ji.
PAN number will come? PAN number will not come. Because in 10B, the form is saying that what is the total contribution received out of the 10 years, they are saying that one.
Suresh ji? We have lost Suresh ji. It will not be required. We can go.
सुरेश जी म्यूट हो गया आपका।
Manoj ji, should I raise one question?
प्रमोद जी बोलिए।
हाँ, ऐसा है कि 17AA को मैं पढ़ता हूँ, तो यहाँ बोलता है कि मेरे को क्या क्या बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट मेंटेन करनी है, तो वहां पर सब ठीक है, क्या इंक्लूसिव डिफिनेशंस है कि इंक्लूडिंग कैश बुक, लेजर, जनरल। तो यहाँ पर जो है, जैसा अभी सूरज जी कंप्लीट कर रहे थे, इनकम एंड एप्लीकेशन या इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट के बारे में नहीं बोल रहा है। और ऑडिटर जो है इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट बनाएगा, और यहाँ पर आपको ऑडिट रिपोर्ट को, ऑडिटर को एप्लीकेशन ऑफ इनकम की डिटेल देनी है। तो यहाँ पर क्या है कि रेवेन्यू भी रहेगा, कैपिटल भी रहेगा, हाउ टू रिकॉन्साइल दिस ऑल दिस थिंग्स, क्योंकि इट विल बी डाइवर्जेंट फ्रॉम द इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट। हाउ टू डू गो अहेड in the change situations?
No, sir, what we are suggesting, even earlier also we were suggesting that because it is a special purpose audit report, an income and application account should be prepared. Earlier the word profit and loss were used. This time the word income and expenditure has been used, because there is no expenditure under section 11 at all, because expenditure is in the nature of a charge. And section 11 says that first remove all charges from the income. After removing the charges, whatever income is left, that income is available for application. So what we are suggesting, that the auditor should prepare an income and application account, and all things which can be considered as application, revenue expenditure, repayment of loan, or capital expenditure should form a part of that income and application. Otherwise, it will not be possible to prepare either the audit report or file the ITR 7, because earlier physical computation and reconciliations were being prepared along with, but now there is no scope for those kind of documents.
ये फुल्ला जी लगता है
Pramod, we have to wait for institute's guideline, because we are also confused, because they are wanting the application to be certified, but they are using the word income expenditure without distinguish that it has to be different than the regular format of income.
कारण क्या कि कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर को जो मैं एप्लीकेशन में ले जाऊंगा तो मेरा स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अफेयर्स बन ही नहीं पाएगा, फिर तो मेरे को दरकार ही नहीं।
नहीं, उसके लिए मनोज जी ने कहा ना, इट इज स्पेशल पर्पस रिपोर्ट। आप जनरल पर्पस रिपोर्ट से कंपेयर मत करिए,
अलग से बना लीजिए,
अलग से बनाइए इसको। आप जनरल पर्पस रिपोर्ट से बनाने जाएंगे तो नहीं बनेगा। यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर सेपरेटली फॉर इनकम टैक्स पर्पसेस।
नेक्स्ट पार्टिसिपेंट
मेरे को इनकम एक्सपेंडिचर बनाना है और इनकम एंड एप्लीकेशन अकाउंट भी बनाना है क्या? दोनों दो चीज बनानी है क्या?
नहीं, सिर्फ इनकम एंड एप्लीकेशन अकाउंट बनाइए। और जस्ट मैं कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर के लिए बता दूं, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में समटाइम्स कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर समझ लीजिए आपने एक एम्बुलेंस खरीदी, सो दैट इज एन कैपिटल एप्लीकेशन टुवर्ड्स एडवांसमेंट ऑफ योर ऑब्जेक्ट्स। आपने एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव बिल्डिंग बनाया, दैट इज इट इज अ कोर कॉर्पस एसेट। So that is why capital expenditure 100% application, 100% application का मतलब क्या हुआ? 100% depreciation देता है उसके अंदर में। उसको रिकॉर्ड में आप रिकैपिटलाइज कर लीजिए कैपिटल फंड बनाकर, बट यू प्रिपेयर एन इनकम एंड एप्लीकेशन अकाउंट। इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है,
जरूरत नहीं है, मतलब वही जानना चाह रहा हूँ मैं।
नेक्स्ट पार्टिसिपेंट।
So just one question relating to registration. When a trust has been provisionally registered and the provisional registration is due to expire in the next 6 months, is it calculated from the perspective of previous year or the assessment year, sir?
No, provisional registration, you cannot, the provisional registration has to be regularized within 6 months of the date of registration or commencement of activity. And commencement of activity, we take any kind of application. Even if a single rupee is spent, activity has commenced. Therefore, it is unlikely that you will have a situation to wait till the last 6 months. So last 6 months, I think, will not be relevant in your case.
Sir, but in cases where the trust has already been registered under the erstwhile 12A, they've been given 5 years of provisional registration.
No, that we have already discussed. That is by mistake they've written provisional, but it is your regular registration. You treat it as a regular registration.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
सर, मेरी क्वेरी इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट से रिलेटेड है। मेरा ये पूछना है कि जब हमने इनकम और एप्लीकेशन अकाउंट बनाना है तो हम उसको सर्टिफाई करेंगे या वो सिर्फ अपने वर्किंग के लिए हम बनाएंगे?
नहीं, दैट इज द प्रिंसिपल स्टेटमेंट। वो 10B रिपोर्ट की जो इनकम एंड एप्लीकेशन अकाउंट और बैलेंस शीट है, दिस आर द टू स्टेटमेंट्स। वो तो प्रिंसिपल स्टेटमेंट है जिस पे ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू आपको लेना है।
सर इंस्टीट्यूट के जो गाइडलाइन के हिसाब से हम इनकम एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट बनाते हैं, क्या हम वहाँ पे दिक्कत में नहीं आ जाएंगे कि हमें जब नाम है इसका देंगे इनकम एप्लीकेशन अकाउंट?
देखिए मैं समझ गया। द इशू हियर इज दैट हम स्पेसिफिकली इनकम टैक्स के प्रोविजंस डिस्कस कर रहे हैं। कुछ इंस्टीट्यूट के गाइडलाइन पढ़ते हैं और इनकम टैक्स के प्रोविजन से जब रिलेट करते हैं तो उसमें कॉन्ट्राडिक्शंस आते हैं। So then we have to call that what should we do to comply with the Income Tax Act, because Income Tax Act and from an assessment point of view, how we can protect our assessee and what is the correct way under a direction given under the Income Tax Act, because we are preparing this audit report under the direction of the Income Tax Act, not under the general provisions of our institute. इसलिए हम बोल रहे हैं कि इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में एक्ट के हिसाब से जो इनकम आती है और एक्ट के हिसाब से जो एप्लीकेशन आता है उसी मेथड में कंप्यूट कीजिए। बाकी ये कंट्रोवर्सीज होपफुली इंस्टीट्यूट आने वाले दिनों में सेटल करेगा।
थैंक यू सर। थैंक
यू सर। एक न्यू ट्रस्ट है सर, न्यू ट्रस्ट है, उसके ना फॉर्म मतलब नॉर्मल रजिस्ट्रेशन किया था, फिर फॉर्म 10A भी it got rejected just because it has been filed after the due date. So with respect to this circular, can we again file Form 10AB? And I just wanted to confirm कि मुझे इसमें जो rejection हुआ है Form 10AD में जो उन्होंने rejection order दिया है उसको mention करना होगा क्या?
नहीं, आपको आपका पहले 12 रजिस्ट्रेशन था क्या?
न्यू रजिस्ट्रेशन था, उसमें मुझे प्रोविजनल रजिस्ट्रेशन मिला 3 years का और मुझे 10AB फाइल करना था.
New registration after 2021.
Yes, sir.
New registration after 2000, so you will not be covered under this circular. And the provisional registration को regularize आपने की है तो उसका reason अगर सिर्फ time है, then maybe you will have a window to file. सुरेश जी?
या माने ये सर्कुलर दो चीजों को कवर करता है. एक तो 10A वाला केस है, एक 10AB का केस है. आपके केस में प्रोविजनल रजिस्ट्रेशन आपको मिला था, कन्वर्सन आपने टाइम में नहीं किया, एंड आपका रिजेक्शन भी उसी ग्राउंड में हुआ है, नॉट की अदर ग्राउंड कि आपने टाइमली फाइल नहीं किया है. तो आप दोबारा अप्लाई करते हैं, आपको कुछ लिखने की दरकार नहीं है. ठीक है, आप दोबारा अप्लाई करते हैं, आपका फिर से नहीं, आपका क्या, आपकी तो फिर हियरिंग होगी ना, आपकी तो फिर हियरिंग होगी. हियरिंग में फिर आपको बोलना पड़ेगा कि सर्कुलर के थ्रू हम फाइल किए हैं. आपका तो 10AB जमा करने से तुरंत अपने आप ऑर्डर होगा नहीं, देन अगेन हियरिंग होगी आपकी, एंड अगेन उसको फिर वो कंसिडर करेगा.
सर अभी जो ये प्रोविजनल रजिस्ट्रेशन जो करेंगे विद इफेक्ट फ्रॉम अर्ली डेट और फ्रॉम दिस डेट,
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है.
Now we are running out of time, please. Hurry up, please.
सर 16 जून को मैंने फॉर्म 10A फाइल किया था 12 के लिए और 80G के लिए. 20 फरवरी को मेरे को 12A का फाइनल रजिस्ट्रेशन मिल गया. 80G के लिए मैं रिजेक्ट कर दिया.
कल लग गया होगा कहीं, कल बोला ना कल हिट कर दिया.
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है सर. सर सेक्शन 8 कंपनी का कैसे करेंगे? सेक्शन 8 तो कंपनीज एक्ट में कवर्ड है, तो उसका ये इनकम एक्सपेंडिचर, इनकम एप्लीकेशन क्या दो अलग बैलेंस शीट्स बनाने पड़ेंगे?
हम लोग शुरू से बोल रहे हैं कि जनरल पर्पस रिपोर्ट अलग है और स्पेशल पर्पस रिपोर्ट अलग है. ठीक है, अब जनरल पर्पस रिपोर्ट आपको एक्रूवल मेथड में कंपनी रेट के हिसाब से आपको जमा करनी है. आप वहाँ जो कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट देते हैं ना, कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट आपका डायरेक्ट मेथड से बनता है, इनडायरेक्ट मेथड से बनता है. आप वहाँ डायरेक्ट मेथड से बनाएंगे तो आपका रिसीट पेमेंट बन जाएगा और उसके बेसिस से फिर आपका कंपटीशन बन जाएगा.
ओके, तो फिर हमें वो इनकम एप्लीकेशन अलग दिखाना होगा.
सर 13(3) में जैसा आपने बोला अभी कि कोई भी सभी डोनर्स स्पेसिफाइड पर्संस है, तो उनका स्पेसिफाइड पर्संस के रिलेटिव डिटेल्स भी मेंशन करना पड़ेगा. क्योंकि रिलेटिव डेफिनेशन में 56 रिलेटिव्स आते हैं.
And the issue here is that we have kept it simple, that the organization has to give a declaration of specified person, and that is what has to be accepted by the auditor. Auditor need not go and do the analysis. And donor, normally large organizations are not following because this limit has not been reset, and we have not seen assessing officers going after it. It is a technical requirement. Normally, because हर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के अंदर में ऐसे होंगे, बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में तो हजारों डोनर होंगे जिन्होंने 50,000 से ज्यादा दिया है. So that is not the intent of the act and it is not being pursued. So we can take the information from the, एक सर्टिफिकेट आपको लेनी है for your safeguard from the organization that कि भैया आप हमें आपके specified persons कौन है उसकी लिस्ट दे दो. Based on that you prepare the audit report. Otherwise you will be lost in determining information.
रिलेटेड पर्सन से मेरी क्वेरी है, क्या हमें उन रिलेटेड पर्सन की लिस्ट लेनी है जिनके साथ इस साल में ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ है या पहले कभी भी हुआ है या नहीं हुआ है, उनकी लिस्ट लेनी है?
टेक्निकली तो पुराने लोगों में ट्रांजैक्शन वाली बात नहीं है. अगर स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन है तो ट्रांजैक्शन आता है. ट्रांजैक्शन हुआ इसलिए स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन नहीं बनता है. बट किसी ने 5 साल पहले भी डोनेशन दिया है, वो स्पेसिफाइड पर्सन हो जाता है. तो इसीलिए हम आप बोल रहे हैं कि ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन पर का कॉल है. ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कितना डिटेल आपको देता है, आप ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से एक सर्टिफिकेट लीजिए, बेस्ड ऑन दैट अपनी ऑडिट कीजिए.
ठीक है, थैंक यू.
No end हो गया, otherwise there is no end.
सर जी
cash
Ji,
payment and then,
let us now.
Sir, let us now wrap up the session, sir.
Right. So
Sir, I
I
would
am
request the Kothari ji for closing remarks, sir.
I am very thankful to all the learned speakers, Dr. Manoj Phogla ji, Suresh Kejriwal ji, Tarun Madan ji. They have dealt with the subject so deftly, so nicely, and so patiently also to the queries of even the repeated queries has been answered very patiently. So I am very thankful to all the speakers, and everybody I think has enriched his knowledge, and he would be able to discharge his attest function, audit function also, advice about the maintenance of books of accounts, and advice about the circular which has been given just a leeway for the particular persons who could not make the application, etc. in time, etc. So therefore, I now just hand over the proceedings to the organization.
सर मेरा एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन है, सिर्फ एक चीज बता दीजिए, ये इनकम
विशाल जी आप
लास्ट क्वेश्चन है, सिर्फ एक लास्ट है। अब ये बताइए, जैसे आपने बताया पेमेंट, हमें पेमेंट बेसिस पे एप्लीकेशन लेना है, अगर मेरे कोई डेटर्स हैं या मेरा इनकम रिसीवेबल है, मैंने कोई इनकम का प्रोविजन किया है, बिकॉज आई गॉट अ सेक्शन 8 कंपनी, तो उस केस में क्या मैं उसको भी एप्लीकेशन के लिए माइनस कर सकता हूँ या मुझे वो लेनी पड़ेगी?
नहीं, रिसीवेबल को आप माइनस नहीं कर सकते, उसको इनकम में भी मत लीजिए आप, और जब आपका रिसीव होगा तभी उसको इनकम माना जाएगा। एंड फॉर इवन इन सेक्शन 8 कंपनी, इनकम फॉर अ चैरिटेबल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड में एक सर्टेनिटी के बेसिस पे लिया जाता है, तो यू कैन टेक ए कॉल। हम तो आपको एडवाइस करेंगे कि आप उसको अगर रिसीट बेसिस में रखेंगे देन इट विल बी इजियर फॉर यू।
सर मैं जो 10B की कैलकुलेशन बनाऊंगा उसके लिए मैं वो भी ना कंसीडर करूं, और जो मेरे पेबल्स खड़े हैं मैं उन्हें भी कंसीडर ना करूं, यही कहना चाह रहे हैं ना आप बेसिकली?
हाँ, पेबल आपके जो खड़े हैं, जब पेमेंट होगा उसी समय आप उसको
उसी समय लेना, तो फिर अल्टीमेटली मैं इनकम रिसीवेबल भी हटा दूं, पेबल्स भी हटा दूं ना, मैं
जी,
सिर्फ
जी,
पेमेंट बेसिस का ही ले लूं।
जी
थैंक यू
सर। एक चीज,
Thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of You Exchange, I would like to thank everyone, especially Manoj Phogla ji, Tarun Kumar, Madan ji, Suresh Kejriwal ji, for the wonderful session and such a detailed and elaborate understanding on the recent changes of charitable trust and maintaining books of accounts plus amendments. And I would like to special thanks to PR Kothari ji for moderating this session wonderfully. I think the questions are innumerous and still it will go on. So we'll try to extend next session regarding this. We'll try for the further sessions also. Thank you so much, all the participants, for such support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We are ending the seminar. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, again.